What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the PFF NFL show, and welcome back to regular season football. Trevor, Sikkema, Dalton, Wasserman here with you guys once again for another season of the Grades Release Show, where, just like on this show right here, we're going to give you the top 5 graded players for every single team and every single game, give you our most disappointed, our most impressive from every game, and just the storylines and the stats that told the story from every single game in the NFL this week. Dalton, how you feel, my friend? Feels good to be back on the desk.
Feels good to be back on the desk. Regular season NFL football. Trev, I'm not usually a morning person except on Mondays during the regular season when we have to get all the tape watch in. That's the most fun part of the week for me, is just breaking down what in the world we saw across, 13 games yesterday along with the Thursday and Friday games, and there was plenty of stories to be had.
Yeah, we'll review all of the games in the 1 p.m. and the 4 p.m. slate, obviously the craziness that is, as well as Sunday Night Football. We're going to start with Sunday Night Football because we have to. It felt like it was a candidate for game of the year already. We're going to talk about the Friday and the Thursday games as well, give you some analysis there, some stats that told the story, what you guys can sort of take away from those games moving forward. If you guys don't have a PFF Plus subscription, now is a perfect time to get one. If you use the promo code PFF NFL Show 25 when you go over to PFF.com, you can actually get 25% off a yearly PFF subscription right now. And that's the way to support the show. It's a way to get yourself 25% off when you do that. And that way you guys can see all of these numbers, the grades, everything that we're going to talk about here on this show, you guys can see for yourself, as well as what all 32 teams do as clients of ours as well. So make sure you get that PFF Plus subscription. If you don't have one right now, it's a great time to get it, and you get 25% off. Once again, PFF NFL Show, no spaces, just PFF NFL Show 25. That's the best way to do that. Let's get right to it, because we got a long show. You know, we did this every single week last year, and the way that you and I love to get into the weeds for these games, we got a 3-hour show on our hands, I'm sure, talking about what was the excitement of what we saw from the first regular season game from all these teams. But we have to start with Sunday Night Football. We have to start with what could very well be a preview of what we're going to see later in January down the road to start the 2026 year, as one of these teams could absolutely represent this conference in the Super Bowl. The Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. The Bills win that game in truly thrilling fashion, 41-40. They defend home turf. What an unbelievable game it was. We're going to dig into the stats that told the story in a second, but let's get to the top 5 graded players as we kick things off here. Buffalo won, so we'll do them first. We'll get to their top 5 graded players. In the very top of the list, defensive tackle Ed Oliver, a 92.1. Love to start things out with an elite PFF grade there, Dalton. You love to see it. Edge rusher Greg Rousseau with a 79.7. Wide receiver Keon Coleman with a 78.2. I know we'll talk about him here in a couple of minutes. Cornerback Teron Johnson with a 70.3. And then offensive tackle Spencer Brown, a 69.3. Of course, we always highlight the quarterbacks, whether they're in the top 5 or not. Josh Allen certainly was, as the big hero last night, an 87.0 overall PFF grade. And then on Baltimore's side of things, Kyle Hamilton, their star safety, with another elite 93.9 overall grade. Center Tyler Linderbaum with an 87.4. Offensive tackle Ronnie Stanley, an 87.0. Defensive tackle Nnamdi Madubuike with an 84.8. Wide receiver Zay Flowers, an 83.8. And then quarterback Lamar Jackson, a 79.2 PFF grade in this one. Dalton, there is so much to get to, but what is your stat that told the story here to start us off?
What's funny to me about this game is there is so much to get to, and it's wildly entertaining, and it's probably at least one of the 5 best, if not the best game we watched all year. And yet, I don't think we learned anything new about either of these teams. We know Josh Allen is heroic, especially in Buffalo. The Bills gave up 40 points. We know their defense struggles at times to stop better teams. We know the Ravens can really run the football. Derrick Henry had a huge night. And the last thing that we do know and came up as the most important part was the Ravens have a hard time closing out games in games like this. They've now lost 5 of their last 6 against either Buffalo or Kansas City. Their last 3 drives told you everything you need to know. They were outscored 22-6 in the fourth quarter. Their last 3 drives, 2 3-and-outs, and a Derrick Henry fumble, the great play that Ed Oliver made in the backfield that really, for as much as Josh Allen is going to get the credit for all the heroics, and he's the quarterback, and he made the plays when he needed to, Ed Oliver had the biggest play in this game, I think, with that forced fumble on Henry. And in the first 3 quarters, the Ravens secondary was really darn good, 76.4 coverage grade. In the fourth quarter, 44.6. So just everything went wrong, especially in the last 4 minutes. It's been said it's only the 4th game since 2000 where a team has blown a 15-point lead in the last 4 minutes. So I just think you have this theme with the Ravens. We saw it at the end of the Bills game in the playoffs last year. We've seen it in past games against the Chiefs also. They just need to finish games. They are good enough to win every game they step on the field for. They're good enough to win a Super Bowl, but you have to execute for all 60 minutes, especially against a team like this. And I think the other lesson out of that, when you're playing one of these big four quarterbacks, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, and Jackson, you just can't give them the ball back. You have to coach a different type of game. Jaden Daniels might also be in that mix. We're getting there maybe with
I wouldn't put him there yet, but like him, like Herbert's had some great, game-winning drives, things like that. I wouldn't put those guys in those categories yet, but those top four specifically.
These four in end-of-game situations, you just have to coach it differently. Yeah. You have to be more aggressive. And actually, to me, it's not the aggressive part on that last 3-and-out the Ravens had. I felt like they had to punt it there because you were only up 2 and they were already in field goal. To me, the call that got me was the jet sweep with Zay Flowers on 2nd down, like 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8. I wasn't a fan of that call. I go live and die in this game with Derrick Henry, at least on the first 2. He didn't get much on the first down carry, but he's the ultimate closer, right? If there's anybody, it's either him or Saquon Barkley that I would want back there as the closer in a game like this. Give the ball to Derrick Henry on 2nd, then see where it goes. But I get not going for it on 4th down because if you don't get it then, they can just kick a field goal right from that spot, right? Maybe your defense can find their footing, but the 2nd down call with the jet sweep with Flowers, I wasn't a fan of. But again, you just have to, you could argue on those first 2, maybe they should have just put it in Lamar's hands and thrown it on the first 2. Just get a first down. You're 1 first down away from winning, and this ends up being the result because it just wasn't enough to beat Josh Allen.
It's hard because I do agree with you. Even in the moment, I remember them having whatever it was. I think it was a 4th and 3, right? Is what they had there at the end. And I remember even like saying to myself, like, I don't know if I would go for this here. Like, I think that I would punt the ball. But then what played out. And I think that what changes things is that's not the first time we've seen that, right? The Bills have been on the opposite end of it, where they gave the ball to Patrick Mahomes, and I don't remember what's the
13 seconds,
17 seconds, 13 seconds, whatever. Somehow that's too much time for a quarterback like that. When you play one of these 4 quarterbacks, as the game played out last night, and as I was sitting there with my jaw on the floor that the Buffalo Bills actually won that football game, I came to the conclusion that you did. End game situations, you have to just have a different rule book if you're playing one of those 4 quarterbacks. And the rule book has to be, especially if you are one of the teams that also has one of those 4 quarterbacks, right? If you are really any other team in the NFL, perhaps punting really is just the best way to do it. But certainly, if you are one of the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, and the Bengals, and you are playing one of those other teams right there, you might as well go for it. Because at that point, you would rather control what you could control your own destiny. Because as much as we have, defensive-minded head coaches and, teams that the defense may boast like the best part of their team. We may call them a defensive football team. It doesn't matter when you play one of these 4 quarterbacks. It doesn't. And like the Ravens, defense was a little up and down all night, but I still think that's a very talented Ravens defense. But at the end of the day, I said this on Twitter last night, punting that football just makes you feel good about a bad decision. That's what it is. Because you tell yourself, of course I punted it, because if I don't punt it and we don't get it, they're right within field goal range. Well, I thought about it if they were in field goal range, because what was the problem about last night? Not only the fact that you were playing an alien on the other side at quarterback in Josh Allen, who makes defending those types of series incredibly difficult with everything that he could do with his arms and his legs. The problem became not that they kicked the field goal. It was that they kicked the field goal as time expired. They were now allowed to not just control the football, but control the clock. So if the Ravens were to go for it, they, in my opinion, would have had a better chance at even if the Bills kicked a field goal. You have time on the clock, which ultimately just does what? Allows you to control your own destiny. Again, it gives you the football back. So I would rather stack as many drives and opportunities where I control my destiny. And so that it was just such a phenomenal masterpiece of a game where we got to sit there and think about what happened in the last 2, 3, 4 minutes of that game. And to me, that's just the conclusion that I came to. It's like, I even if all logic tells you to punt the football, when you know that you're going up against that caliber of a quarterback, you can't do it. You can't do it because, again, to me, it just makes you feel good about a bad decision. And ultimately, that's what happened with the Ravens.
I think even more so than punting or not. I think because we so often get in these scenarios where a team on defense has a certain number of timeouts, and the offensive team just goes, okay, let's just make them. Let's find a way to make them burn those timeouts. Okay, let's not throw out towards the numbers and risk going out of bounds. Let's run the ball. Let's make them burn the timeouts. And the reality with those guys is those special quarterbacks you mentioned, it doesn't matter. They'll find a way with no timeouts. They practice these things. They're the best situational quarterbacks as well, right? So I think for me, it also goes to even more so before we get to the punt or not decision. Keep your entire playbook open on the first 3 downs, right? And I'm cool with Derrick Henry running on first down, but it's the second down call, and then you set yourself up for a questionable third down call where Bobby Babbage timed up a blitz and got a free rusher at Lamar, and he had to get rid of the ball quicker than he wanted to. But I think it's just a thing where it's like, the first 3, you just leave the playbook open. Just don't go into make him burn timeouts mode and doing all that, because it just doesn't. Josh Allen, even if he's got no timeouts, if he's got a minute and a half, he will find a way to do it, right? And I think it's really the whole sequence more so to me than punt or not in that spot. It really is. I think it's just you just have to coach against those 4 guys and maybe 1 or 2 others.
Right.
Just a different. And you have to go into the game at the beginning of it knowing you're doing that.
Yeah. Now, I'm not trying to take anything away from the Buffalo Bills winning this game, because it was obviously thrilling that they were able to do that. It's huge to get that win over the Baltimore Ravens specifically, because this is a team that is going to be gunning for the number 1 seed in the AFC along with them. But as we sort of get into our stats, my stat that told the story, and then we'll get into most impressive and most disappointing, the Buffalo Bills, as do most teams in the NFL, have a Derrick Henry problem. And I feel as though, like, we have talked about this before, it's like, Buffalo, they're going to have to go through Kansas City. Whether they play them in the divisional round, whether they play them in the AFC Championship, whatever, they're going to have to best Mahomes. Like, that was the narrative with them for the last couple of years. Now I think it's the Ravens. I would be shocked if they don't see this team again sometime in January. And right now, if you look at the last 3 games since Derrick Henry has been a member of the Baltimore Ravens against the Buffalo Bills, he has rushed for 199 yards, 84 yards, and then last night, 169 yards. That's 150 yards a game average against just the Buffalo Bills. And last night, obviously, there's a lot of craziness and thrilling things that happen that end up with the Buffalo Bills winning that football game. But one of them was the fact that Derrick Henry fumbles the football, which it feels like he never does. And the other was that you had an unbelievable drive down the stretch and scored when you needed to. And it was incredible. And again, I don't say any of this to take anything away from Buffalo winning that football game last night. But if you are going to beat the Baltimore Ravens when you see them again in January, whether it's in Baltimore or whether it's in Buffalo, Derrick Henry can't rush for 150 yards on you like he has as an average over the last 3 games. They have to figure out how to defend Derrick Henry better, or I don't think that they will be able to do this again.
Well, in the playoff game, Henry only had 84.
Right, that was the game.
For most of the game, especially in the first half, they did do a better job of it and just stack the box and get single high and hope you have enough bodies. Because the way first of all, the Bills, and this is why my opinion of them, even after this win, my opinion doesn't change. It's great to get this win. It's great to have the tiebreaker. The question is their defense good enough to win a Super Bowl against any of those teams, right? They could be playing anybody in the postseason. Can they get big stops when it matters? They got a couple of them in this game. They won by the slimmest of margins. That's fine. But to me, I question the talent on their defense. Obviously, I like their D-line. We like Rousseau and Oliver, but the back 7 worries me a lot. And the way their defense is structured against Baltimore. Look, the Bills last season, they ran a base defense with a third linebacker on the field 5% of the time, the least in the NFL. They're just not going to put bigger bodies out here against the Ravens. They're going to stay in their defensive structure, and that's why the Ravens can always run on them, because they generally give them the numbers to do so. So maybe it's just a bad matchup, right? And you have to win games like this. You have to win these types of shootouts and late game execution, which against teams like this, that's going to come down to the last 4 minutes anyway. So they're going to stick to their guns. And it's the same question coming out of this game. Great for the Bills to win, but you have the same questions about both teams. Can the Ravens execute late in big moments? And can the Bills play defense?
Yeah.
I don't think we leave long. It's a great football game. Don't get me wrong. 10 out of 10 game. We're going to remember it for a long time.
Right.
But I come out of the game with the same opinion of the two teams that I did going in. They're both Super Bowl contenders. They both have something we're going to look at in the postseason and go, can you get over this hurdle?
Yeah, dude, my most impressive in this game, how good was Ed Oliver in this game? I mean, he was unbelievable. And Ed Oliver is obviously somebody who, like, pound for pound, very strong as a football player, but, you know, known as an undersized guy. Okay, was he going to be a little bit more of a pass rusher getting into the NFL coming out of Houston? Man, he is as strong as an ox. And when you look at his overall run defense grade this past game, 92.7. That's why he was at the top of the list and the highest graded player for the Buffalo Bills. He was unbelievable. So he is my most impressive in this game. It was great. I've talked a lot about it feeling like it's kind of Greg Rousseau and then, you know, a cast with him. Like, not to say that they're terrible, but I wanted to see more from the defensive line. And I think Buffalo has tried to draft and acquire guys for that to be the case, but it has felt as though Rousseau was really the constant on that defensive line, and the rest of them were just kind of flash in the pan players. Man, what a great night for Ed Oliver to, if he's just a flash in the pan player this year for them, what a great game for that to be the case. But you're hoping that week one is a sign of things to come for him to really be stout on that defensive line along with Rousseau for the entire season.
Yeah, it's generally been consistency that's the issue. It's usually three or four games a year where you go, wow, that guy was the best player on the field. Also, have we ever seen someone just pretty much rip the ball out of Derrick Henry's hands like that? Have we ever seen that?
Yeah, that was – and I felt like that was such a theme throughout the NFL. I mean, Nate Landman punching that ball straight out of who was it? Ogunbowale for the Texans and the Rams, and I feel as though this weekend we had a lot of phenomenal forced fumble, peanut punch type of guys going for the ball, and we hear coaches emphasize that all the time, and we saw the fruits of that. Did you get to linebacker grades when you were talking about the linebackers?
Yeah, that's my most disappointing part. Okay. I mean, really, again, I'm going to be talking about this a lot over the course of the season. The Bills' linebackers and safeties, the middle of this defense is an issue. The linebackers in this game, and look, it's an extremely tough matchup for linebackers against the Baltimore Ravens, maybe the toughest in football. But Terrell Bernard, highly paid guy, 38.8. Matt Milano, 29.8. I need him 100% and be in prime Matt Milano. Dorian Williams, a 60.9 in a part-time role, a little bit better. But I'm going to be looking at the middle of this defense all year and just going, look, this is the unit that has to be better. The linebackers and the safeties, it was a problem last year. It was a big reason the Bills were second to last in the league in coverage grade as well. That's a unit that has to get better. Tough matchup week one, found a way to win, giving up 40 points, need to be better. Even next week against the Jets, who obviously played good offense this past week, it's going to be the X factor in their whole season. Can they defend the middle of the field? Can these linebackers stop the run against a team like this? In this game, they really couldn't. Can they do it? And I'm not saying they have to be number one in the league. I need good enough. I just need, even if you give up 28, Allen can make up that difference, right? It's a thing of, if the Bills have an average defense, they can be the best team in football. They just have to be better than this.
Yep. You want to shout out Josh Allen real quick?
How could you?
I don't have a most disappointing in this game.
You could shout out Josh Allen every week, and I mean anybody who ever blames him really for much of anything, it's just nonsense to me. In this game, this is just the fourth quarter, Trevor. Just the fourth quarter. 16 of 21, 251 yards, one passing touchdown, 2 rushing touchdowns, 4 big-time throws, 90.3 PFF grade. Josh Allen's fourth quarter alone was better than 80% of the quarterbacks' entire games this week. That's how good he is. If you let him get hot, if you let him get 3 or 4 drives in a row where he just has a pulse, he will bring this team back. I mean, just a supernova. And again, to the point of the MVP debates and all of that, maybe statistically it should have been Lamar or whoever else last year. I don't know that there's a singular player more important to their team than Josh Allen. If they had just somebody even average in there, I don't know that they'd win more than 5 or 6 games.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just him or Joe Burrow maybe. That's about it. Lamar, yes, not that Lamar's not incredibly important.
I mean, Mahomes is in that conversation.
But to me, if you put an average quarterback on the Ravens, they might still be a wild card team.
Yeah, I understand. You're doing the true, like, take him off the team, replace him with an average player.
And Allen, you just go, they don't win this game with anybody other than Josh Allen.
Yeah.
You just don't.
I think the Bills' floor, if you were to replace him with an average quarterback, would still be relatively high. I do, because I still think the team is talented. But obviously very few human beings on the planet are replicating what Josh Allen was able to do last night. And I think that's absolutely worth shouting out. So we move on to the next game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers went to face the Atlanta Falcons, I should say, and came out with a victory in the division 23-20. 20. Top 5 graded players that we have for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this game. Cornerback Zion McCollum, fresh off of that contract extension, worth every penny. 77.0 grade. All right, it wasn't a 99 elite grade, but he was the highest graded player that we had for the Buccaneers in that game. Next is cornerback Jacob Parrish, so the rookie, which love to see that, 76.5. Safety Antoine Winfield Jr., who play the game. I mean, you see the picture of it right there, the pass break up there. I'm going to get to that as my most impressive player, but I mean, that is play of the game type of stuff where, man, when Winfield Jr. was fully healthy 2 years ago, I remember there were 2 specific plays where he was the reason they ended up winning that football game. The game in Carolina is one of them for the tackle at right before the goal line, and I can't remember what the other game was, but he was literally worth two wins for that team 2 years ago. So it was good to see him making those plays and back and healthy again. Well, if you're a Falcons fan, of course, that's not the case, but I digress. Linebacker Levante David, 72.3, and then center Ben Bredesen, who was playing guard, I believe, for this game. He was playing the left guard spot.
I thought Bredesen went. Hang on, let me look. I thought Bredesen.
Did he stay at center? And I thought Michael Jordan moved to center.
Is that how that worked? Because I thought before the game we heard that it was Bredesen. Bredesen played center.
Okay, so he did still play center in this one. And then Michael Jordan played guard.
Left
I'm guessing,
guard,
yeah,
yes.
he would have played left guard because Graham Barton ended up playing left tackle, which I'll get to in a second. But anyways, Bredesen, a 71.6 overall grade. Quarterback Baker Mayfield in this one, a 63.5. Some people might think of the crazy throws that he had and be like, whoa, how's he a 63.5? We'll get to that in a second. Top 5 graded players that we have for the Atlanta Falcons. On the other side, edge rusher Arnold Ebiketie with a 78.4. Linebacker Divine Diablo with a 76.0. Tight end Kyle Pitts, there you go, fantasy football owners, 73.2. Safety Xavier Watts, the rookie there, loved what I saw from Xavier Watts, a 72.8. He had the chance to get 2 interceptions in this game. One of them, I think, just missed his hands. The other one was the Ibuka touchdown that just went over his fingertips that he read perfectly. And then he had a PBU as well later in the game against Ibuka. So Xavier Watts looked awesome. Love to see that from the rookie. Should have never gone in the late third round. He was at least drafted a whole round too late. 72.8. Chris Lindstrom, as he often is in the top 5, is 71.0. And then quarterback Michael Penix Jr., 68.9 in this game. Where are we starting, Dalton? What's your stat that told the story?
So there's 2 factors in this for me. One, it's just Baker Mayfield. Maybe Baker Mayfield is also on that list of guys of like, just don't give him a pulse or he's going to take advantage of it, because that's really how it was. He didn't, you look at all 4 quarters, he didn't play particularly well in this game all the way through. He had 4 turnover-worthy plays, obviously playing behind a makeshift offensive line, really struggled to run the ball. Bucky Irving only had 37 rushing yards. Rashad White, 2 carries for 14. I mean, the Bucs were, it feels to me, Trev, and you know this better than anybody right now, these early season wins without Tristan Wirfs, without Chris Godwin, especially in a division and against probably likely the next best competitor in this division, it feels even more important for the Bucs to get this win with the injuries they had. They just won a game with, a backup left guard, a left guard playing center, a center playing left tackle, albeit did it in college. A Rashad White is banged up, Chris Godwin's out, Jalen McMillan's out, Mike Evans didn't have a huge day. It feels like everything went wrong. Everything coming into this game was wrong with the Bucs. And Baker Mayfield just found a way to get it done. The 2 touchdown throws to Emeka Ibuka, and let's not forget Ibuka and how important his role in all of this is, replacing Chris Godwin as wide receiver too, right? He had the biggest game out of anybody for the Bucs, but Baker Mayfield, get him to the 4th quarter, 6 of 10, good enough, 68.5 passing grade, big-time throw to Ibuka to the post on the game-winning touchdown. Obviously, the play before that with the big roughing the passer on Ruka Rororo. I mean, it's just Baker Mayfield.
Which was soft, by the way.
It certainly was.
That was
but
soft. It was soft.
I mean,
it was soft.
We get plenty of those now, for sure.
I know, but it was just, it's like, come on, man.
But he's another one, and there's just certain times, and it comes out right in week 1. It feels like now we're going to get 3 or 4 games a year where we just come out of it and go, Baker Mayfield just found some way to have more points than the other team.
Yeah.
And that to me is just what, again, week 18 last year against the Saints. They were looking dead in the water at halftime against one of the worst teams in football, and Baker starts a fist fight and finds a way to pull through in the second half. It felt like the same thing here where the Falcons had every reason to win this game, right? They were the healthier team. They, obviously they're very explosive. Darnell Mooney was out, but you still have London and Pitts and Bijan Robinson having a big day, especially in the receiving game. I mean, everything about this game should have said, okay, the Falcons will win, except Baker Mayfield says, well, no, you're not. That's basically where we're at with the Bucs right now. And again, I think through these first 6 or 7 weeks, as they're clearly not 100% as a team, the more games they win in this stretch, if they get to week 7 and they're just even above 500, it feels like they're going to roll through and win the division because then they found a way to get through the hard part of this.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Young Ku's got a 44-yard field goal at the end of the game to tie it. He should make it. Like, if you're in the NFL, like kicking is difficult. I understand that. But, whether or not Raheem Morris should have said it like this publicly to the media or not, he's not wrong. You have to make those kicks. You put yourself in an opportunity to get a less than 45-yard field goal to tie the game and send it to overtime. You got to make it. And Koo knows that as well. But it's one of those things where this game was extremely close. This game was extremely close the entire time. And I think it comes down to, the injuries that the Buccaneers had. And they were able to overcome those well enough. Whereas I think that when you look at how the patchwork offensive line was, they had an 86.8 pass blocking grade as a team. To me, that was solid enough. That's exactly what you needed. If you told me, hey, I can guarantee you the Bucs are going to have a 68.6 pass blocking grade before this game. Do you want to take it, or do you want to risk maybe them playing better or worse? I'd sign the dotted line immediately.
In their situation,
I would
absolutely.
have absolutely taken this. So they did a great job given the circumstances. But on the flip side, I will say, I think this was a matter of, and we talked about this all offseason, the Falcons' young players looked promising. I thought Jalen Walker looked good. I thought James Pierce Jr. looked good. He had an above 20% pass rush win percentage. He had a couple of times where he went up against Graham Barton, and he worked him. Graham Barton was not ready to guard his outside shoulder as well as protect the inside shoulder one-on-one against a player who is as fast as James Pierce Jr. He beat him 3 times. I think he had 4 total pressures. 3 of them, I think, were against Barton, James Pierce Jr.
That sounds right to me,
But they didn't lead to tackles in the backfield, stops, things like that. And maybe later down the line, even this season when they play again, perhaps that's the case. I don't know off the top of my head when they play again. I don't know how far it is. But to me, it just was. And going back to Xavier Watts as well. Watts was almost there. He was almost there on game-breaking plays. Turnovers that he forced when he was at Notre Dame. He was close to reading those and getting his hands on the football. But he didn't quite do that yet. And to me, it was just a matter of, those were the 2 question marks, right? When we previewed this team, it was, how are the Bucs offensive line going to handle the Falcons? And how good are the Falcons' rookie defensive players going to be? And at the end of the day, it did end up being very close, but I think the Bucs handled their deficiencies a little bit better than what the Falcons rookies were able to show in their first regular season game in the NFL. And I think that's why we got to where we got to. But I mean, you had so many other great. I mentioned the Antoine Winfield Jr. one. He's the most impressive player for me. He didn't have an out of this world PFF grade. I think it was somewhere in the 70s. I think that it was sort of a solid Antoine Winfield Jr. type of game. But he makes the play that saves the entire game on Hodges when he had the opportunity to score a touchdown there. I thought Penix looked good. He looked like somebody who, you should absolutely fear moving forward. But that's what I had as my stat that told the story, and that was my most impressive.
No, I think I'm going to go actually skip over to my most disappointing real quick. It actually is the Falcons pass rush, and you're hoping for better from this young group, right? And their 4 defensive ends, Ebiketie, Leonard Floyd, and the 2 rookies, they were kind of splitting snaps pretty evenly between them. And, the only thing you look at is they got 1 sack and 1 hit on Mayfield in this game. There was a second unofficial hit that ended up being the roughing the passer. But even the 1 sack was a fellow rookie, Billy Bowman, on a slot blitz. He'd come in untouched on a blitz. So, I mean, this defensive line, we knew it was a work in progress, right? But this was a matchup where with the Bucs not having Tristan Wirfs and having the makeshift offensive line, they really needed Pierce and Walker and Floyd, Ebiketie, the guys up front to pressure Baker Mayfield. And the handful of times that they did, well, Mayfield made him pay because sometimes he's going to do that. But to not get him down, to just get him for the 1 sack on a free blitzer, it's tough. They need to be able to rush 4 and get home to the passer. It was their biggest problem last year. And in this game, I think at least on the defensive line, it was still a big problem, right? And especially against a makeshift unit. It wasn't Tristan Wirfs against those guys. It's Graham Barton now playing out of position. So it's tough. It's tough when you have good quarterbacks in tight games and you can't get pressure on them and have all your coverage assets back there, drop 7 in coverage. You're going to have a problem. And Baker Mayfield had just enough space to operate and make those big throws.
Most disappointing for me was Bucs linebacker Savasi Dennis, who missed most of last year with a shoulder injury. He played only 4 games, and he was supposed to kind of be that next linebacker. They were really excited about him when they drafted him, and then he got hurt last year. And so We talked in the preview show, we talked this offseason about how bad the Buccaneers were at defending over the middle of the field at the linebacker level, and then that bled into defending the deep passes as well. He was healthy. He was out there. He was playing next to Levante David as that full-time linebacker, and he was good in run defense, 86.3 run defense grade. So when things were between the tackles, he was pretty fearless even as a smaller linebacker, and he was able to get his nose in there and make a difference. In coverage, though, specifically against Bijan Robinson, 28.8 coverage grade, and he just looked very outmatched against Bijan Robinson. Now, Robinson's one of the best receiving backs in the NFL. He's quick. He's fast. Like he will force all sorts of missed tackles. If you ever get him in space, it is such a difficult ask to defend a player like that. But Dennis didn't defend it well. And I'm not saying that like it's curtains for him. Like he's not good. He's not the guy at linebacker. But I do think there's a little bit of I think a lot of Bucs fans, specifically, obviously, I've come from covering that team as a beat reporter, so a lot of my following, a lot of my timelines are a lot of Bucs people. They kind of treated Savassi Dennis as like, oh, okay, Dennis is back. All of our linebacker issues are fixed. Like, he is going to be fine. He was a fifth-round pick, right? And I think that you remember, like, he was a fifth-round pick for a reason. It's even going to take him a little bit, and I think the most important part for him is kind of what he looks like in the second half of this season. But in coverage against Robinson, it was a struggle for him. You would have liked to see a better just baseline for him, even if Robinson is going to get his, because you know he is.
Yeah.
It was pretty catastrophic for him this week.
I mean, to me, if Antoine Winfield plays like this consistently, because before last year, the 3 prior seasons, he was the highest graded safety in football. If Tyke Smith's going to be solid at safety, I feel better about their middle of the field coverage. Linebacker is the biggest question for me. And look, maybe Levante David's just ageless. He's going to do this till he's 60 years old, right? I mean, he's still a top 5 guy in this game, right? But that linebacker spot and the depth specifically and who is next to David at all times is a question for me. And credit to the Falcons putting that in the game plan, because remember, Dennis played, 4 games last year and missed both of the games against Atlanta. So he has no feel when he's out there on the field right now for what Atlanta's going to throw at him. And Atlanta's attacking the middle of the field like crazy last year, and now they're throwing Bijan at you. It's a tough matchup. I think the Falcons, it was a great game plan on their part to attack him in his first game in almost a year, right? So I think it is going to be a big factor that we're looking for moving forward with the Bucs is I think if I was picking out a weak link on their defense, it would be at the linebacker level, even though Levante David is there, but we don't know. There's nothing else proven there.
They were so poor last year. You have to go after
right.
it, you know? So until they prove this year, until they put tape out there that they can defend it, yeah, you go after it a bunch. I mean, it's why Kyle Pitts had a good day as well, because they're still kind of figuring things out there. Most impressive, and then we'll move on.
The guy you mentioned right off the contract extension, Zion McCollum. He was fantastic, the Bucs' highest-graded player. The secondary was really good in this game. He was a big reason for it. 85 run defense grade as well with 2 stops there. 72.8 coverage grade, 4 catches allowed, 30 yards through the air allowed. Almost had an interception, almost capped it off with an interception. He just dropped it. It was right in his chest. That would have made for a perfect day right off an extension. But Zion McCollum, we saw even at the beginning of last year, first half of the year, he was one of the best cornerbacks in football, and then it got a little inconsistent down the stretch. I think along with the rest of the Bucs coverage unit, but if McCollum plays like that and Winfield plays the way he played, this Bucs secondary is going to be in a really – and Jacob Parrish as well. Let's not forget him getting the starting nickel slot as a third-round pick, and he's been fantastic through the preseason and now through week 1.
Commanders and the Giants. Commanders win this game 21-6. I wouldn't say that the Commanders won this one convincingly.
They didn't command it?
I would say that they didn't command this win. Yeah, but a win is a win is a win in this league, and you're always going to take it. Let's take a look at the top 5 graded players that we had for the Commanders that's in this one. Your boy, Javon Kinlaw, at the top of the list, 89.7. Love to see that in his Washington Commanders debut, especially after some criticism from us on the desk here, as many others, question the contract that they gave him. But, hey, early returns, you love to see that for them. Safety Will Harris with an 84.1, number 2 on the list. Defensive tackle Eddie Goldman with an 84.0. Running back Bill Krosky Merritt, 4th in the depth chart, my ass. 79.3 in his debut here in the regular season. Offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil with the 79.0, and then your boy Jaden Daniels with an 83.9. On the Giants side of things, their rookie Abdul Carter with an 81.5 in his regular season debut. Dexter Lawrence right behind him with the 78.5. Edge rusher Brian Burns, a 71.0. Wide receiver Malik Neighbors with the 68.0, and then edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeau with a 67.9. Boy, all the stars. There they are. Basically everybody that we talked about the most.
That's all
for the New York Giants.
That's their 5 best players right there. There they are.
It's in the top 5. You love to see that. Quarterback Russell Wilson in this one. off target more than you would prefer, and I'm sure we'll talk about that here in a second. But 54.1. I also saw. Well, actually, I'll let you start this. Stat that told the story here for you.
All right, Trev. There's something I usually like to say about offensive lines. Okay, good offensive lines they block on the first level. Great offensive lines block on the second level. The Giants' offensive line doesn't block on any level. It is. There's all sorts of quarterback controversy now. I'm not saying Russell Wilson wasn't good. He wasn't good yesterday, right? This Giants' offensive line, especially without Andrew Thomas playing, they don't give anybody a chance to win. I don't care if it's Wilson or Jackson Dart or Jameis Winston or Tommy DeVito or Phil Simms or Eli Manning. They can't block anybody. They just can't. Even with Andrew Thomas, when he is healthy, they can rarely block anybody. But you go a 56.9 PFF grade as a unit, 46.4 run blocking grade. Trev, on 17 design carries. Again, this game was put way too much on Wilson's shoulders. 17 design carries, 34 yards. You're getting 2 yards a carry on the ground. And you can't protect Wilson even against a unit. And I know that Javon Kinlaw was great. They made a couple acquisitions here. But this Washington defensive line was the second worst in football last year. And they can't even block this team. So the Giants, they're talking quarterback. Is it Jackson Dart? Brian Daboll's non-committal? I really don't care. I actually wouldn't put Jackson Dart.
They just announced that Wilson's going to start this week.
That's better because I actually just wouldn't put Jackson Dart behind this offensive line for as long as I can. That would scare the hell out of me. Especially with Andrew Thomas, if he's going to be week to week and not 100% now. We know he's been injury prone, but I mean, Wilson under pressure on 17 out of 45 dropbacks. I think this is the one thing we looked at as the kryptonite. The D-line is great. The secondary was not great in this game, but tough matchup against Jaden Daniels, and you still held him to 21. That's not terrible, right, against Daniels in this offense. They can't block anybody. And if you can't block Washington, who are you going to block? Honestly, and you know, look, and they played a good game. I'm not saying, you know, guys like Kinlaw and Eddie Goldman and Deron Payton and these guys didn't play well in this game, but this Giants offensive line is the anchor sinking the ship. I mean, okay, they're playing Dallas next week. Cool. We'll see what that matchup looks like. But Dallas's D-line was a little bit better than we expected. But you got teams like Kansas City and Philadelphia and Denver and Nick Bosa and San Fran and Micah Parsons and the Packers, all these teams on your schedule that can rush the passer, that can stop the run, that you need to be able to block up front. This is one of the teams, and there's a list of them, probably 5 or 6. This is one of the teams where they could be good, and the offensive line can sink the whole operation. And to me, that's where that was the story of this game. Trev, they had the better scenario here. In this game, they had 11 plays in goal-to-go situations, all right? 3 different drives, I believe. They scored 3 points.
Yeah.
They just can't. They can't block anybody. And until they can, I'm not throwing Jackson Dart out there anytime soon. I'm stalling as long as possible. And you know what? If Wilson takes the beating, or even if Jameis has to do it, I'm not putting that kid behind this offensive line the way they're playing. I can't do it. Especially not when Andrew Thomas still isn't in there.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of discussion of which quarterback that you put behind an offensive line that you maybe don't trust, because you hope that behind the closed doors the coaching staff is honest about sort of where they are.
I saw this with Zach Wilson and the Jets. And Zach Wilson is a talented kid, and eventually it didn't work, but they never blocked for him.
Yeah.
At any time he was there, they never blocked for him.
So Jackson Dart last year, I just checked this, 69.0 passing grade under pressure last year. Now, his best games came in the beginning part of the season where their schedule was a little bit softer. But as you got into SEC schedule, he had some tough games under pressure, but he also had some decent games under pressure. So I won't take that away from him there. Russell Wilson yesterday, when he was under pressure, 48.4 passing grade. He completed just 5 of 16 attempts, but 0 turnover-worthy plays. So I wonder if the equation now for the New York Giants is simply the fact that, hey, is Russell the guy to make the most plays under pressure for us? No, probably not, because they have Jameis and Jackson Dart on the team. But is he the guy who is most likely to, or I should say least likely, to have a bunch of turnover-worthy plays under pressure? That may be the case.
I don't even think
that might be the case for them. But that might be part of the decision why they say, okay, we will roll with Russell until maybe we get 5-6 weeks into this season and realize that, okay, maybe our defensive line, because I don't know if this is going to be true or not, but maybe they're simply saying, let's see if our defense can do enough for us. Let's see if the run game can get a little bit better for us, and let's just not have somebody who's going to throw a bunch of turnover-worthy plays. But if the Giants are sitting there at 1-4, Week 5, week 6 comes around, then you have to reevaluate. And you have to say, okay, well, now the lack of turnover worthy plays don't matter. Because if Russell's not going to be somebody to make plays for us under pressure, now the equation changes. And that, to me, is maybe when we're going to see them make a change to a different quarterback, which I would assume will probably be Jackson Dart.
The one reason I would think then it would matter early in the season if Jackson Dart was in there is you also don't want to create bad habits, right? You don't want a guy either getting gun shy or maybe trying to force it through the pressure or those plays that those plays you're talking about. That's a lot of what, say, a Caleb Williams would do with the Bears last year, right? Or even back when he was at USC, where you're trying to do everything. You're trying to save us. And at this point, one guy is not going to save this Giants offense. I don't believe that. They need 5 guys up front to save this Giants offense first. They need to be able to run the football because at the end of the day, it looks 6 points on this Washington defense, as bad as we saw it at times last year. That's not getting it done. And I mean, you've got one more week against Dallas to prove, okay, can you be more functional up front? Can you have more than 34 rushing yards, from your running backs? I mean, this is already a problem. And we thought it might be a weakness, and it was a bottom 5 offensive line last year, and it's basically the same crew. And whenever Andrew Thomas gets healthy, it gets a little better. But this is the kryptonite.
Yeah.
And Wilson. Here's the problem with Wilson. Last year, highest graded deep passer in the NFL, right? Which is good, and you want that.
Pass block. You got to pass block.
You don't have time.
Yeah, you got to pass.
You don't have time. Even with Jackson Dart, we know him as a vertical passer, high ADOT from Ole Miss and all that.
Right.
If you don't have time, it doesn't matter.
The philosophy's there. I like the receivers that they have. I even like the running backs that they have to complement a deep passing game. But you got to block.
Absolutely. I don't think it's, you look at this offense and you look at now, say the Houston Texans we'll get to later, but the entire reason even an offense as talented as that we're like, oh, it could sink the ship is because it can't block anybody. It's the same thing here with the Giants. Absolutely.
So that was sort of my stat that told the story. Most disappointing was the Giants' offensive line, in case we didn't mention this sort of within us talking about it. 13 pressures allowed. That was 6th most in the NFL so far here in week 1. And then Wilson's inefficiency, 51 dropbacks from him. You mentioned how much they really put on his plate. 57.6 adjusted completion percentage. I mean, adjusted completion percentage got to be over 70% in this league, or you're not going to win. His wasn't even 60. 12 targets to Malik Neighbors, 5 catches. I mean, it's inefficient. And so again, like that's why. I mean, when I went back to watch the All-22 of Wilson, he's not. It didn't look terrible, but when he was missing, like he was just missing, like it was out routes where he was missing it by, I don't know, maybe like 1 to 2 feet. Like the throw was correct, it was where it needed to be, the timing was right, but he was just like, I am not risking a turnover. I am going to throw it to where either my receiver is making a full arm extension catch or the ball is not going to get caught at all whatsoever. So that's, again, why I wonder if this is why Wilson's in the game, because he's going to be somebody who's not going to put the ball in harm's way, but eventually you're going to get to the point in the season where that's not good enough. That will no longer be the priority for your quarterback position. For the most impressive, I have the Commanders' offensive diversity in this one because I thought it was fantastic. 5 different players carried the football. None of them had a yards per carry average below 4.3. You'd love to see that. And then 8 different receivers were targeted in this game. 6 receivers had more than 20 yards receiving. So it wasn't just the fact that, I mean, we talk about this with quarterbacks all the time, like, oh, he targeted 11 receivers. They weren't just targeting a lot of receivers. They were genuinely scheming things up for these guys to succeed. 6 different receivers having more than 20 yards is very, very tough on a defense to handle. So kudos to the Washington Commanders for Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury for dialing up a very diverse offense that clearly worked and was able to get them a win.
Yeah, you love the way that Deebo Samuel was utilized in several different
leading
ways.
Receiver for them.
Zach Ertz is still a big factor. Terry McLaurin didn't have the huge day like he has sometimes, but with Jaden Daniels running the point for this team and how well he makes his reads too. I mean, he just sees everything ahead of time. He's such a good processor and he's so accurate that he really doesn't care who he's throwing the ball to. Who he's throwing the ball to is the open guy, and he finds him more often than not. Just an incredible distributor of the football at this point. And he's so, even against an elite defensive line where it was 4 of their 5 best players out there in this game, he's just so calm and cool back there. He's just that you talk about no turnover worthy plays and not putting the ball in danger. He knew that's all he had to do in this game, and 21 points is plenty good enough.
Somebody in the chat's asking, how is the Commanders' yards until contact, so yards before contact, 2.2 average.
That's good. If you get that out of this again, and against this unit,
really good.
I mean, if the offensive line now is going to play at a solid level, obviously with Laramie Tunsil, Josh Connerly starting it, and I mean, tough first assignment for Josh Connerly, but clearly good enough. Brandon Coleman on the inside at left guard, it's a big factor. But if they're going to run the ball like that, and we know they've got a super diverse run scheme, and just with all those backs, and then Daniels himself with the option game, this offense is as dangerous as anybody in football because they have just so many options, and they have the quarterback who can carry them through even the hard times.
I'm going to make you say nice things about Javon Kinlaw before we move on.
Look, man, score one for Adam Peters. It's against the Giants and this offensive line, but Javon Kinlaw just ridiculously good in this game. 87.6 run defense grade. The Giants didn't run the ball much. Javon Kinlaw was out there for 11 snaps of it. He got 6 positive grades. That's always been the weakness.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden Dan Quinn all figured out what's wrong with Javon Kinlaw and he's a really good player living up to the first round hype, you got a whole different team. Because this defensive line to me was the biggest question going into it. 3 pressures in this game as well. Looked strong. He was moving well. I mean, you turn on the end zone cam in this game of Kinlaw, it looks like a different player than we've seen the last few years. Now, again, against this Giants unit, okay, we'll see. If you do it this Thursday against Green Bay, then we have a situation. But a really good game for him to start off, especially with all the big money and the expectations and the pressure needed to perform on this defensive line that, again, was the second lowest graded in football last year.
Speaking of Javon Kinlaw's old team, speaking of Aaron Rodgers' old team, the New York Jets. I wish you guys could have the pleasure of watching a New York Jets football game. Watching Dalton watch a New York Jets football game like I got to do yesterday. It's always a wonderful time. The Pittsburgh Steelers ended up winning this game 34-32. I believe the final over-under line for this game, depending on where you look, was either 37.5 or 30. Wait. What do you?
I did not think this would be the second highest scoring game of the day.
I am laughing. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I don't think you can. But one of our producers, Eli, just said over the speakers in the studio room, he wanted to make sure that everybody knew that the over-under was 37.5, and he took the under. And he, in fact, did not win this one. 34-32. Never would have seen this one coming. Steelers ended up winning this game off a thrilling Chris Broswell field goal here. Top 5 graded players that we have for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Edge rusher TJ Watt at the top of the list with an 82.4. Cornerback Jalen Ramsey in his first regular season game as a Steeler, 79.4. Wide receiver DK Metcalf in his first game as a Steeler, 75.6. Safety Deshaun Elliott with a 72.3. And then tight end Pat Freiermuth with a 71.7. Aaron Rodgers' game in this one. I know his stat sheet might make you think it'd be a little bit higher. 54.5. We'll get to that in a second. On the other side of things for the New York Jets, Quinnen Williams at the top of the list, an elite 92.0. Sauce Gardner right behind him, another elite 90.3. You love to see your stars with elite single-game grades to start the season. You love to see this as well. First-round pick, offensive tackle Armand Membu. Tough assignment going up against the Steelers' defensive line, and went up against TJ Watt quite a bit in this one, and yet still stood tall. 89.0 grade from Armand Membu to start his NFL career. That was awesome. Wide receiver Garrett Wilson with an 86.1. Running back Breece Hall with an 81.5. And then Justin Fields in this game, an 82.2. Dalton, stat told the story. What do we got here?
This, honestly, it's almost, when you look at all the numbers and you look at everything statistical in this game, it almost makes no sense that the Jets lost this game. Right, and the number of things that had to happen for them to lose this game. I mean, the Xavier Gibson fumble on the kick return that basically, gave the Steelers a free touchdown there. They scored, the very next play or 2 plays later. I think the one thing that did get away from them, they had a chance with about 4 minutes left to really put together a 4-minute drive and kill all the clock, and they ran the ball. There was some times with the Jets where they ran the ball on third down. It was a bit conservative. It was a 3rd and 4 on their second to last drive where then they didn't get it and had to punt it away. Chris Boswell is just an absolute weapon. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It feels like every week you got a 60-yard game-winning field goal here, and then obviously Jalen Ramsey making his presence known to win the game. But I think it just comes down to the Jets for the most part. They were the more physical team. I thought they were ready to go. Aaron Glenn had this team more ready to go early in the game than any game we saw last year, or maybe even the last couple of years. And it ended up just being, it's another one, late game execution, right? One turnovers, 1-0, but it was so costly. The Jets not being able to extend a 4-minute drive at the end and giving Rodgers one more shot. Then you had the fluky DK Metcalf, like triple deflection catch and a PI, and the Jets secondary was struggling, other than Sauce Gardner, but it's just what it comes down to. I mean, just the narrowest of margins and a very, very young team, one of the 5 or 6 youngest teams in the NFL, trying to learn how to win, right? For a franchise that hasn't done it in a long time. I thought the Jets played a really darn good game. Justin Fields was really good, but again, Aaron Rodgers, Steelers, Mike Tomlin, you have a veteran team that understands situational football, and they got just enough done in the fourth quarter. But basically all of the numbers would tell you the Jets should have won this game, and pretty much Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers just found a way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, they found a way to do it, and to be honest with you, they had 2 blown coverages that led to touchdowns, right? Getting into Aaron Rodgers' grade and why the stat sheet, because Rodgers, let me find his stats that were on the regular stat sheet here. Rodgers was 22 for 30, 244 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. A lot of people would look at that scoreboard and say, how in the world is he at 54.4? Well, he didn't have any big-time throws in this game. 2 of the touchdowns that he threw were completely blown coverages. I mean, there weren't guys within 15 feet of him, and they scored touchdowns. So obviously you don't get a ton of credit for throwing to a guy who's absolutely wide open when blown coverage is the reason why he's wide open. The other touchdown that he had was a pop pass. And then one of the other ones was in the red zone in a goal-to-go situation, and it's a throw to the flat to the running back, and Jamie Sherwood has no chance to cover him in that for the coverage that was called. So it was sort of like it was kind of the Jets, to me, in a lot of ways, were the better football team. I agree with you, but they also had the more costly plays that the Steelers took advantage of.
Yep.
And that's why you bring in Aaron Rodgers, right? I mean, his PFF grade is what it is, but to be honest with you, like, you want to have a quarterback who can mentally go through things very quickly when the ball is snapped to say, wait a second, that guy's wide open. And he can immediately throw it to him and get it there in good timing, and Rodgers was able to do that. Now, obviously, those are viewed as low difficulty plays, but I'll give him the credit for just the awareness that he has from playing this game so long to where he goes, yep, that guy's wide open, and he's already looking his way and going to make a pass there. So I agree with you. I thought the Jets showed a lot of fight in this one. The Jets were 3 for 4 in the red zone, 75% in the red zone in this game. They were 3 for 3 in goal-to-go situations. The Steelers were also great in the red zone. That's why I think that we had both these teams scoring in the 30s. They were 3 for 3. That's 100%, of course. And then goal-to-go situations, they were 2 for 2. Of course, 100% there again. But to me, the most impressive was the Jets' defensive line. Jermaine Johnson looked great. Quinnen Williams looked great. Will McDonald had, I believe, an 86.3 pass rush grade in this one with 2 sacks. Those 3 combined for 12 pressures and 3 sacks in this game. They were fantastic. You combine that with what Sauce Gardner was able to do, getting an elite coverage grade, it's basically, you can't really ask for a recipe that's better for the Jets. You just have to ask for a better floor for the guys around them. The ceiling was there. Your stars played up to your potential. It's just the rest of the guys got to play better. So I think that this is, albeit a loss and probably a tough one for the Jets to take, like, Game 1 of the Aaron Glenn era, like, you feel pretty good about this.
Absolutely. I mean, the way that Fields played, you mentioned all of the stars came out. Breece Hall was great. Garrett Wilson was great. How about Armand Membu? That's my most impressive guy. You consider the assignment that he had against this Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line, and he was one of your highest graded players. I mean, you're talking about a guy who, and he didn't look all that consistently great in the preseason, but it's a small sample. It's preseason, but especially in the run game, the way the Jets ran the football in this game, that's their ideal blueprint to win. Armand Membu, 90.3 run blocking grade, 9 positive run blocks. And the funny part of it is, I don't know if you saw there was a next gen metric graph about which direction the Jets were running the ball in, and it was constantly left just to stay away from TJ Watt.
Yeah.
They ran the ball 36 times in this game, 26 of them to the left.
That's awesome.
So Armand Membu, all those positive run blocks
Didn't
for
Cam
for
Hayward
Membu.
on that side though?
I think he did. I think he
Hopefully
might move
they're
around.
running outside.
Either
Hopefully
way, they're just not just not running at TJ.
Yeah.
That's really the big thing.
Sure.
But Membu getting all those cutoff blocks on the backside, 9 positive, and most of the time he's on the backside of that. He looked fantastic from start to finish in this game. Really, this whole offensive line especially in the run game, was really good. This is how the Jets want to run their offense, right? It's running the ball first, getting the read option game a little bit. They scored their initial go-ahead touchdown on a Justin Fields naked boot down on the goal line. Fields looked really good throwing the ball, especially with the play-action concepts. I think offensively, I think this is everything the Jets could have dreamed of. And then you look at the stars on defense playing up, but you make a good point about the lack of depth with the Jets, because that's really the issue, right? Your only good wide receiver is Garrett Wilson. Right now, the only player who played well in the secondary is Sauce Gardner. That was a big problem, is all the coverage bust, and they're playing more man-to-man coverage under Aaron Glenn. The stars came out, and I've said this offseason to some people. The Jets' 10 best players can play with just about anybody. It's the other 43. What are you getting out of the rest of them that's going to decide that you win ball games?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's exactly how. Yeah.
Going into my most disappointing, because I mentioned that the Jets' defensive line was my most impressive. The Jets' coverage unit was my most disappointing because Sauce had a 90.5 coverage grade with 2 pass breakups. He was excellent. There was only one other Jets defender that had a coverage grade above 51, and it was Andre Sisco, who I think it was like a 51.5.
Yeah.
Like the rest of the group, the floor was so low, unfortunately, for the rest of the group which you figure is going to be the case anyways, because it's year one of Aaron Glenn, and you know he's probably going to do the same thing that Detroit did 3 years ago, where they just 3 or 4 years ago, I can't remember what it was now, with Dan Campbell, where they just kind of like cleaned house of everybody, and they're just like, we're going to draft the dudes. Like, we're going to draft the guys that we believe in, and we're going to build our core out of those players. And it's sort of just about surviving until then. So, most disappointing for you, and then we'll move on.
Look, the Steelers, they do need to play better on offense. The 34 points and all of that, you can look on the surface, and Aaron Rodgers, they got to be better. They got to be better up front, especially. Rodgers, I don't think was protected all that well. I thought Broderick Jones especially just continues to struggle starting out his third year, and they have to run the football. I mean, that was non-existent for them. 20 carries for 53 yards, -3 yards before contact.
Yeah,
it was one of those scenarios where they had more yards after contact than actual yards. So, especially
the old Ashton Genty.
Exactly. So, I mean, you talk this this offensive tackle situation. I'm keeping an eye on it still, because I know Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald are really good players, but there's even better edge defenders that the Steelers are going to see on their schedule throughout the year. There's a ton of them in the NFL, and this offensive tackle situation and this run game, they've got to run the football.
Yeah.
They can't ask Rodgers to carry them. That's not what he's going to do anymore. He got them through this game. He took advantage of the Jets' mistakes, and there was even some fluky things that happened. But they have to be balanced on offense. They cannot go in there every week with their offensive line honestly playing as poorly as they did in this game.
Somebody in the chat was asking, like, hey, what did you think about Justin Fields? I thought Justin Fields was great.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, like, he's holding on to the ball a little bit longer than you want most quarterbacks to. Like, he's going to take a little bit more time to scan the field. He's going to run, right? I mean, when pressure's in his face, when the first progression or even the second progression, I'm not just calling him like a first read and run kind of a quarterback. I think he's evolved a little bit, but he's somebody who knows that his legs are a weapon. And so he uses those consistently. I thought he played well this past game. And to be honest with you, I have thought Justin Fields has played well in the NFL when he has been confident. Very clearly, when he was with the Bears, he was not confident. The coaching staff, whoever was in his ear, the offensive play caller, whatever was going on, he was not confident when he was with the Chicago Bears. So, to me, I wasn't really going to judge him entirely off of what I saw during his tenure there. When he was with the Steelers last year, there were moments through the first, what was it, like 4, 5, 6 games of the season where we went, hold on here, like, do they really need to go to Russell Wilson? Like, Justin Fields is actually playing pretty well, and it's because he was playing confidently. That is, again, what I saw with the Jets this past week. So, I mean, was it a light the world on fire game for Justin Fields? No, but I thought he was, like you mentioned, this was a good game from the New York Jets, and Justin Fields absolutely goes into watch.
Should be noted, 90.4 passing grade. That's the best of his career. So, look, and it's only on what he throw the ball, 22 attempts, 25 dropbacks, and that's the Jets' ideal. Yeah, they're going to call it. They're going to run it more than they throw it. But when they asked Fields to throw it, he was spectacular. And I think you mentioned the confidence and the trust in Tanner Engstrand's play calling. He did look comfortable, and that's a big thing. I think if he's going to play like that, then the Jets' real only downfall on offense is going to be a lack of receiving depth behind Garrett Wilson. But he looks just fine throwing the ball to Garrett, throwing the ball. Breece Hall looks spectacular, and we weren't sure how he would look with the contract situation and all the kind of, we thought, hard feelings coming out.
Maybe it's not his last year in New York.
Well, maybe he's just motivated.
Maybe not.
But this team, offensively, this was the blueprint that the Jets want week in and week out. If they bring this every week, especially if they run the ball the way they did, they will be a problem for a lot of teams. We need to see Fields on that consistent level as well.
In what was one of two I have to imagine most selected games for survivor pools everywhere. The Arizona Cardinals squeak it out in New Orleans against the New Orleans Saints. And I know a lot of people, myself included, who picked the Arizona Cardinals to win this game for my Survivor League that I am in, are thankful for that. 20-13 was the score in this one. Arizona wins it. Let's look at the top 5 graded players that we had for the Cardinals in this game. Cornerback Will Johnson, a 90.2. God, we had some good rookie performances.
Why did he go in round 2? Why?
Well, he went in round 2 because of the foot injury. And okay, but,
just nonsense.
I think that we'll get to this again when we talk about the Eagles, because the Eagles is the same thing, right? Jahad Campbell looked incredible in game 1 of him with the Philadelphia Eagles. And Jahad Campbell goes all the way at the back end of the first round. Should have never gone to the back end of the first round, but he did because teams were sort of like concerned about the shoulder. Because he had the shoulder injury, and when you're dealing with a shoulder injury with a linebacker who their entire job is put their shoulder on somebody to tackle him, like, you get a little bit worried about that. No team wants to draft a guy that's not going to be available for them, or that the tape that they watched in college is affected from an injury and they're not going to get that same kind of player. However, I think that NFL teams go overboard with it. I think that they go overboard with medicals like this specifically, where you go, well, okay, are we going to have to cut off his foot?
Well,
are we going to have to amputate his foot?
It's a thing, too.
Is he going to be playing out there with a peg leg? Because if he's not, his foot's probably going to get better. And he was one of the best corners in the country when he was fully healthy 2 years ago.
It's a thing, too, to me, okay, if you're worried about maybe a chronic issue long term. Right?
Sure.
If you're worried,
obviously,
if you're worried about a guy, what a guy's knee is going to be like when he's 32, well, he's 21 right now.
Right.
You can worry about that when he's 32 or sooner.
I get why they do it. I think teams go overboard with it. I think teams go overboard with the medicals during the draft process, but especially when it comes to prospects that could be as difference-making as ones that have the talent ceiling that like a Will Johnson does, or a Jahad Campbell or whoever. But anyways, really quick, I know you guys threw up the graphic and we started talking about something else. Dadrian Taylor-Demerson was an 80.4. Linebacker Akeem Davis-Gaither was 78.0. Look at that. Love the production team throwing it right back up there. Look at that speed. Safety Budda Baker with a 75.4. Edge rusher Josh Sweat in his first game of the Cardinals is 74.5. Quarterback Kyler Murray was a 65.5. On New Orleans side of things, you talk about ageless linebackers, man. Demario Davis, an elite 90.7 grade. He's flying. There was a play that he had. Don't put the graphic down. I'm going to be done in a second. There was a play that he had where I'm pretty sure it was Tip Ryman was coming behind the line of scrimmage in like a split zone run blocking concept. And Demario Davis put his shoulder into his chest and knocked him straight on his ass. And Demario looked at him after the play. It's basically like, welcome to New Orleans with a hit like that. Safety Julian Blackmon with an 83.9. Edge rusher Cam Jordan with a 80.8. Center Eric McCoy with a 79.7. Rookie offensive tackle Kelvin Banks Jr. with a 69.1. And then Spencer Rattler in this game. Not too bad. 77.3. That's how they told the story, Dalton.
Yes, Rattler wasn't too bad. You're talking about a 77.
Don't do this to me. Come on.
Come
on. It's the Rat Pack.
It's just so plotting. Like, they just don't, and even the two big-time throws he did make, there was one at the very end of the game, similar to the Bucs game, that got broken up, like, right at the goal line or in the end zone. Only one deep completion, 5 of 15 on 10-plus yard throws. It did have the interception to Will Johnson deep down the field. 4.7 yards per I just think this Saints offense, it can't just be 4 yards at a time. It's so hard to win like that. And that's what it felt like to me watching this team was, yeah, Rattler didn't play that badly, right? But also, do we ever get to a point with these Saints quarterbacks, either of them this year, where it's you go from, okay, you're not playing that bad to, okay, where you're actually playing good enough for us to win football games. And not that, again, Rattler wasn't bad in this game per se, but you just don't see much explosive out of this offense at all. I mean, that's the big problem for me. So, and the Cardinals are pretty good at preventing explosive plays. It's something they got better at last year. They might even be better this year with Will Johnson back there. But that's the thing for me. I watch the Saints offense, and it's just plodding, one small step at it. It takes forever for them to score, and they just don't get enough chunk plays. And it was a tight in the box game. The Cardinals did not play as well in this game as I thought they would. That was another theme here. So now you have both teams who, outside of a couple of shot plays from really one shot play from Murray to Marvin Harrison, very plodding back. And this was like a very 3 yards at a time sort of game. And for the Saints through the air, I mean, this is the problem with their quarterback situation, is that the exact issue is they just don't have enough juice at quarterback to work things down the field and get consistent chunk plays.
Yeah, first impressions mean a lot. And the first impression that we ever had of Spencer Rattler was that first year that he was at Oklahoma, right? 9.4 big-time throw percentage that season. Folks, that is nuts. I mean, some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL have like a 6-7% big-time throw percentage. Spencer Rattler had a 9.4% big-time throw percentage that first year that he was with Lincoln Riley when he was at Oklahoma. The next year, it was a completely different season, but we thought it was going to be an outlier because the first thing that we saw of Spencer Rattler was of him, this big game hunter type of quarterback. Let's see, I had it up here a second ago. It was 1.5% the next year, but it was a different offense. That was the year that I think Caleb Williams replaced him. Yep. So it was like,
played
okay,
4 games or something.
You just kind of like throw that out. Okay, whatever. That doesn't really count. First year that he's at South Carolina, big time throw percentage 5. You go, okay, great. That second year, his final year that he was at South Carolina, is a 2.8, and what we had this past game is a 2.5. Like, he's not even close to that same quarterback that he was that first year when he was at Oklahoma. And I very much understand being in a Lincoln Riley offense in Oklahoma when they were still in the Big 12, very different from playing in the SEC and even playing in the NFL. But it's just still strange to me that Rattler, who is billed as this high-profile 5-star gunslinger quarterback, like that's not who he is anymore. That's not how he wants to play the game. And so that's kind of what, to me, the Saints are going to be. This was exactly how the Saints wanted to play this game. They were playing an opponent that did not have their best game, and they still lost at home. That makes it tough for me to think that New Orleans isn't picking in the top 3 next year when it comes to the draft.
Absolutely. I mean, there's just that's what you have is there's such a low ceiling on this offense. And think about, to me, the 2 best players. Now, and obviously Alvin Kamara is still good, but he's getting older. The 2 best players on this offense, or at least the 2 most explosive players, are Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. You have to be able to work the ball downfield to him. That's something that when Derek Carr was healthy last year, the Saints were able to do, right, is take shots to those 2 guys. When Rattler came in, that stopped and the offense stagnated. Same thing in this game. It stopped, especially against all the zone coverage the Cardinals play, and they just, again, it's just plotting. And then we saw it on the other side with the Cardinals, too, with Brandon Staley in his first game as the Saints defensive coordinator. A lot more zone coverage than Dennis Allen. Keep it in front of you for the most part, aside from the big go route to Marvin Harrison on the right side early in the game. But you just had 2 teams that struggled to me to make explosive pass plays.
Yeah, and that's why it's a little bit of the same conversation that we had with the Giants. Will there come a point, because I know that Tyler Shuck didn't get the starting quarterback job for this team. Does there come a point 5-6 weeks into the season where you go, okay, Rattler's not turning the ball over, but we're not scoring the ball. We're not moving the ball enough. We're not creating enough explosives. We got to try something different. So maybe that's the time when we get Tyler Shuck as the quarterback there. My most impressive was Will Johnson. I mentioned it. Really kind of didn't look very comfortable during the preseason, so I was a little bit nervous about him. But this first game was great. 90.3 coverage grade, 90.7 overall grade. He had a great play where it was the swing pass to Chris Olave in the backfield that he read perfectly and was able to make a big hit on him. But even beyond that, like, he had a good interception. He had a couple of really nice plays down the field. Like, it was a good game from Will Johnson. And then my most disappointing was just the Cardinals' offensive line. I went back in because I kind of wanted to figure out, okay, why did the Cardinals not dominate this game a little bit more? And I'm going to be honest, like, I think that the Cardinals' offensive line is just very low ceiling. I'm watching this game, and the Saints defenders are flying. Like, they're flying all over the place. And I feel as though the Cardinals have an offensive line of guys that know how to, maybe reach block and angle a guy off, or, wall off a defender to where he can't get to where the ball is. But there's not a lot of impact blocking going on here. You don't have we're not pulling one of these guards and they're, making a big block where you're totally kicking somebody out. Are they running into the player? Yeah, they'll run into the player and kind of do their job. But I was sort of wanting more violence in the play of this Cardinals offensive line. And I just don't know how high the ceiling is for this Cardinals offensive line, how big of people movers and maulers they're going to be for a team that would love to win on the ground, would love to win with Trey Benson and James Conner and sort of let the passing attack be an extension of what they could be on the ground. I think that's when the Cardinals are operating best in Drew Petzing's offense. But I just, when I rewatched it, I felt as though the Saints' defensive line and their front seven was dictating things in that game. And the Cardinals were fine. They weren't like a train wreck at offensive line, but I felt as though they were always of the two-party interaction. They were often the ones that were reacting and trying to recover instead of being the ones that were imposing their will on the guys in New Orleans front seven.
Yeah, and it concerns you because this was coming into it supposed to be a matchup where they could have dominated, as bad as the Saints were in run defense last year. But you've got, and look, obviously Demario Davis is still one of the best linebackers in football. Cam Jordan had a really good game, right? Devon Godshaw, a veteran who they got in free agency this year, he was solid. So you look at this Saints unit, maybe it is a little bit better, but I expected the Cardinals to come into this game and be able to run the football, and it just wasn't great. It was, I mean, we say this, and they had 146 yards rushing, 31 of it scrambling. So you go, okay, 23 carries for 150. I mean, they're ripping off 5 yards a carry, but it never felt like they took it over. Trey Benson had one long run that accounted for 52.
I was going to say, Trey Benson had the 52-yard run that I think was
take out the Benson run, and you're talking about, okay, now you're immediately under 4 yards a carry.
Yeah, you're
right?
like
so
80, 90 yards.
One explosive is tilting that. And these are good backs, obviously. Connor, Benson with the one big carry. Kyler Murray obviously can run the ball, but it felt inconsistent. This entire offense, my most disappointing, actually, and it's not a terrible grade, but it's Kyler Murray. I thought he was going to be better in this game. And to be honest, to me, aside from a couple of nice plays with his legs and the one big ball to Marvin Harrison down the right sideline, I thought it was kind of jittery. I thought he looked uncomfortable. The Saints, again, a lot more zone coverage from Brandon Staley than they used to play under Dennis Allen. They made him check it down. They made him stand in the pocket and think about things. They need Kyler Murray to be better than this. Again, last year they were 5-1 when he had at least a 70 passing grade, 3-8 otherwise. This game he had a 64.5, and they managed to win because it's the Saints. But he's got to be more. We've talked about this, the inconsistency of Kyler Murray, and however consistently well he can perform on a week-to-week basis. That's going to decide if the Cardinals go to the playoffs or not. They're off to a 1-0 start, but I really, especially offensively, was not wicked impressed with them.
Yeah, I just pulled up the Benson 52-yard run, and even on this run, there are multiple Saints players that either dominate at the point of attack when they make contact with the tight end or the offensive lineman, to where like they're getting pushed back, they're knocking these guys down. Like that happened against like 3 or 4 players on this one. And to be honest with you, Julian Blackmon should have been sprinting towards the sideline to be able to tackle Trey Benson after like a 6-yard gain. And he instead came inside. I don't know. I actually have no idea why. Maybe he couldn't see. I'm just looking at the end zone angle of it right now. Maybe he just didn't have a good look at it and didn't even know where Trey Benson was with the ball. But he should have had like full outside contained to the sideline, and he didn't. He cut inside as if Benson was going to like run off tackle or run sort of like a mid zone play instead of an outside zone play. But even on that play, the Cardinals' offensive line was sort of leaving a lot to be desired, and I felt like they were getting hit in the mouth by a lot of the Saints defensive linemen. So I'm kind of nitpicking, right? The Cardinals won the game. Again, a win is a win is a win in the league, but what we're trying to do is not just analyze who won the game. You guys can look that up yourself. What we're trying to do is tell you how the game came to be. And football there's a lot of luck that is in this game. I know people really hate that. It's a trigger word for a lot of people when you bring the word luck into it, but we're trying to predict what is stable, what could be happening next week and in the next couple of weeks and in the second half of the season and all that. So, anything else? Most impressive.
I'll stay in the secondary. The Cardinals' secondary was best unit in this game. Rabbit Taylor Demerson. You mentioned Will Johnson. They got another young defender in Taylor Demerson that was really, really – I mean, you look at this secondary. Johnson, Garrett Williams, Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson, now Taylor Demerson, 78.4 coverage grade, 5 targets, 2 catches allowed for 15 yards, couple of stops as well. This secondary is just getting more and more depth to it. And Jonathan Gannon's really liking the way that they prevent explosive plays, and you've got all this young talent and speed in this secondary. It's very quietly one of the best units, if not the best unit across the board on this team. I think his secondary is going to keep him in a lot of games, and it really was the best one in this game.
All right, before we get to the next game, this PFF betting segment is brought to you by our friends over at DraftKings. A nice little three-legger that hit this weekend. Little storyline. That's what we do when we do bets here at PFF. We kind of tell you, okay, like this is how we see the game going. We like to build parlays off of these storylines and everything. I was a big fan of what Chip Kelly was able to do last year with Ohio State. I'm a big fan of Geno Smith, and so I said, you know what? Pete Carroll ain't coming out of the gate quiet. They're going to hit the gas. I said, all right, Geno Smith, over 250 yards passing. I think the Raiders end up winning that game if that was the case. And then I said Deontay Thornton, the rookie, he's going to hook up with him a couple of times to get over 40 receiving yards. Boom. You love to see it. You love to see it. But we got one more game this week. Vikings and the Bears. I don't know how you feel about this one. If you go over to DraftKings, either the app or DraftKings.com, which you guys can see, of course, all the lines that we're talking about here on this show, obviously we got a couple of hours until game time, so those things are subject to change. But what do you think about this game?
I'll point out a couple of things. I picked the Vikings to win this game. I think you took the Bears, right? So if I like the Vikings, the minus 1.5 isn't bad. I'm going to go a prop on the other side. Let's just say the Vikings get out ahead because their offense even, we'll see with J.J. McCarthy. It's generally so good in the first quarter of games, one of the best early in games. Let's say the Vikings do get out ahead in this game. Now I'm looking at the Bears and Ben Johnson. How are we running this offense? What are we trying to do? I'm looking at DeAndre Swift under 53.5 rushing yards.
Okay.
Vikings had the fourth best run defense grade in the league last year. Really good at stopping the run, blazing fast defense. Now they're even better on the inside now at defensive tackle. Bears have a new interior offensive line. They're trying to gel together. It's still week one. The kinks in this offense. I'm going to say DeAndre Swift under 53.5 on the ground.
Okay, all right. So if you like that and you like the Vikings, there we go. We're 2/3 of the way there to a 3-leg parlay. And if you go over to DraftKings, don't let one bad leg hurt your parlays this season. Parlays, they turn into payouts. And now, even near misses won't haunt your bet. The NFL season is here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is rewriting the rules with Ghost Leg, a new game-changing promotion that turns close calls into cold, hard cash. Best of all, it is available to all DraftKings customers. Here's how it works. You build any 3+ leg pregame NFL parlay on Sundays. Apply your Ghost Leg token, and if one of the legs loses, DraftKings will make it vanish like it never even existed, and it pays you out in cash for the rest. Last season, over 30 million parlays were lost by a single leg. This year, Ghost Leg gives those busted bets a second life. No more busted parlays to haunt you all season with Ghost Leg. The bad leg that vanishes, the payouts do not. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF to unlock Ghost Leg, the promotion that makes one bad leg disappear and pays you out in real cash. Ghost your losses. Get your payouts in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. Fees may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Opt in for single-use token. Minimum 3+ legs and minus 500 odds per leg. Max bet varies. If only one leg of the bet loses, the bet will settle as if only the winning legs were placed and pays out in cash based on odds when the bet was placed. See terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Let's talk about that Raiders-Patriots game. Walt, hope you're paying attention. Raiders got the dub. 20-13 here in this game. Top 5 graded players that we have here for the Las Vegas Raiders. Linebacker Jamal Adams. That's right, linebacker Jamal Adams with an elite 90.9 grade in this one. Tight end Michael Mayer with an 83.1. Tight end Brock Bowers, a 77.1. Edge rusher Max Crosby with a 74.9. Wide receiver Jacoby Myers with a 74.7. And then Geno Smith in this one, his first game with the Las Vegas Raiders, an 83.8. On the other side of things for the New England Patriots, defensive tackle Karius Tonga with an 81.1. Edge rusher Harold Landry III, an 80.5. Wide receiver Kayshon Boutte with a 78.6. Defensive tackle Christian Barmore, great to see him back out there, really is, 77.5. Safety Craig Woodson is 76.5, and then quarterback Drake May just a 69.3. Dalton stats told the story. What do we got?
I think what you have here, this was a close football game all the way through, and what you have is Geno Smith and the Raiders just a little more consistent than New England. New England in the second half, it just shut down. They had 3 points in the second half, didn't get it till the very end of the game. 3 points, 4.3 yards per play in the second half, only 2 explosive plays. And the odd part to me, and Drake May kind of fell out of a rhythm, especially after he missed a throw under pressure and threw an interception. Josh McDaniels only called 2 run plays the entire second half. That felt odd to me, and I know both teams in this game were struggling to run the ball, but you still can't ask Drake May to carry you, especially in a close game, right? I mean, this was a tight game. I know at one point they were down 20-10, but stay within your offense and use all of your playmakers, right, as opposed to asking Drake May in his first game in this offense to carry you through. Now, it gets to a point where eventually you need to do that, and that's the part that got weird to me, is because there was about 5 minutes left, and it was 4th and 10, kind of near midfield, and they decided to punt. They essentially punted the game away with 5 minutes left and said, no, we're good. So this New England offense, I thought it would look good in the first half. You saw some good, couple of nice plays from Travion Henderson. Drake May was making throws. His passing grade in the first half was 83.7. Second half, 59.8.
Yeah.
So I think you just look at they're still building it, right? There's so many young pieces. It's a brand new offensive line with 4 new starters. There's a lot that's going to go into this Patriots team being more consistent. That's just where we got to with the second half of it. After halftime, it just kind of stalled, especially I thought after May threw that interception. Things from there got it looked like I don't want to say rattled, but it looked like he was trying to dial it back a little bit and go, okay, let me not make a mistake here.
Yeah.
But eventually you do have to push it. You're down 20-10 in a game, and they just couldn't do it. The Raiders defense, I'll tell you what, they played a lot better than I thought they would, considering what we saw from them last year for sure.
Yeah, I mean, May's first half and second half numbers it's my stat that told the story as well. You mentioned 83.7 passing grade in the first half and a 59.8 in the second half. Like, he just was not good enough of a quarterback in the third and fourth quarter to make this happen. And the Raiders came out of the gate hot, right? I think that they went up 7-0 to start this game, and they were slinging the ball in their first couple of drives, but then things kind of stalled out, and it allowed the Patriots to stay in things and score themselves and everything. Like, this game was close. Obviously, it was a one-score game. It ended up being 20-13. It was there for the Patriots to win this ball game, but they weren't able to do it, in my opinion, because one quarterback got stronger in the third and fourth quarters, and the other one did not. And Drake May was the one who did not. So to me, it was simply a matter of May was not ready to match what Geno Smith was able to do. And Geno Smith, even though he hasn't been starting for over a decade, he's been in the league for over a decade, right? And so, like, he has had opportunities like this with Seattle over the last 3 years, and so he's used to things like this. And so that it was just a matter of experience, and I think that that's truly what told the story.
And for two teams that really struggled, that's my most disappointing part, is two teams that really struggled to run the ball. The Raiders, 2.3 yards a carry. Ginty had his first career touchdown, which is good to see down on the goal line. The Patriots, 3.3 yards per carry. Geno Smith, and this is something we talked about all summer, he just adds credibility to this Raiders offense, doesn't it? You just look at him back there. If it's under pressure, if he's getting to his second and third read, if he's attacking, and we saw that too in this game, attacking downfield like he always has. He had the deep touchdown like you mentioned early. Geno Smith, it just felt like his pulse never was raised in this game. He just felt so calm in the pocket. He trusted Chip Kelly's play calling. Even when Brock Bowers came out with an injury, and it seems he'll be fine coming out of it. But, Michael Mayer gets in the game. It's seamless. There's no panic, right? You've got working with young receivers on the outside. Jacoby Myers' situation's weird, but he's out there playing, so it's all good. I thought Geno he brings this air of calm, I think, to an otherwise pretty young offense. And that's, to me, is what got them through kind of a grinding, weird, like not great weather, low-scoring game. Like, Geno is just such, like you mentioned, he's only been starting for 3 years, and other than way back with the Jets. But he's been around a long time, and he's been through a lot, and he's seen a lot of adversity. And I think this game he never has to raise his pulse in a game like this. He just goes, hey, just make the throws. We're going to be all right. We know what kind of game we're in.
You say calm, I'd say confident. And sometimes those are interchangeable there, but like Geno is somebody who, I feel like he instills confidence in everybody. I think that Action Genty is another player who is like that. Clearly, Brock Bowers in this game, I don't know if you noticed this when we were watching it live, but like Brock Bowers is very much from everything that we have seen, certainly when he was at Georgia, he's an even-keeled guy. Yep. He does not show a lot of emotion. He was showing emotion in this game. After a couple of the big passes that he caught, he was getting up and he was yelling and he was spiking the ball. You could see like inflection a little bit. Like, I hadn't seen that from Brock Bowers. And I think that's a Geno Smith effect. I think that's a Pete Carroll effect. I think that's a Chip Kelly effect. I love what the Raiders did this offseason. from their general manager, John Spytek, all through the head coach, the offensive coordinator, everybody, the quarterback. I think there is just so much confidence that is within this organization and team now. And I genuinely believe that, is the roster completely there yet? No. But that's why they win this football game. That's how you go on the road and you win this game in the end, because you were the more confident team. Neither one of these offenses were playing that great. Like I said, the Raiders came out hot, but then they really sputtered through the middle parts of the game. The Patriots were kind of, they had a really good first half. Who knew how it was going to be in the second half, whatever. Nobody was taking this game by the horns, if you will. But in the end, the Raiders knew they had a couple of drives to make all the difference in the world, and they did it. And I think that's a Geno Smith thing. I also think it's a Chip Kelly thing. And my most impressive is Chip Kelly. The Raiders, 0.086 EPA per play. That was 11th in the NFL this week. You love to see them hovered around the top 10 with what they're able to do with their offensive weapons, with Geno Smith, with that offensive line and everything. So they were 11th in the NFL this week in EPA per play. 389 total yards of offense in this one. They were 1 for 1 on fourth down in the red zone and in goal-to-go situations. So they didn't have a lot of those sort of like muddy make-or-break downs, but when they did, they were ready to execute. They had the play ready, and they had the confidence to be able to do it. So I felt like Chip Kelly was the most impressive amongst, of course, the players that ended up making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, they do need to work on the run game and just executing in the run game. They've shuffled their offensive line a bit as well, especially in the interior. And we know eventually, and I think New England's front seven is really good. Let's not take away from that. But, that was the disappointing part to me, is really neither team could get out there and run the football very well. I'll tell you, my most impressive, I'm going to go to the defensive side. This is a weird group of linebackers the Raiders have.
Yes,
when you're talking about a veteran, Landon Roberts, Jermaine Pratt in from Cincinnati, Devin White, longtime Buccaneer. He was in there. He played well in this game, and I think this Jamal Adams story is one of the coolest things in football. I really do. And I sat in when he was talking in the like a Jets live Twitter thing with a whole bunch of fans and answering questions from Jet fans about things like. And he mentioned that was before he had signed with Vegas that. There was some teams looking at him to play linebacker, and he's like, you know what? At this point, I just want to be on the field. I just want to play football. And he moves to linebacker. He looks like a natural. You talk about, especially, he played 25 snaps in this game. Right now, what he is obviously kind of this hybrid linebacker. He can play in the slot a little bit. We know he can rush the passer. He always did that well with the Jets and with Seattle. And he's their will linebacker in their base defense right now is that third guy. He looks like a natural. And we saw this in the preseason. Look at this, 72.3 run defense grade. Had a stop there. Looks good, shedding blockers. And he could read offensive lines. He used to do it at safety anyway. 76.8 coverage grade with 2 stops. 2 pressures and another pass rush win. So he won 3 of his 4 reps rushing the passer, 92.5 pass rush grade. He's basically now doing all of the things he used to do, all the great things he used to do at safety, especially for the Jets. He just moved it up a little bit, and he's playing weak side linebacker.
Right.
And to be honest, when you want to bump him out as the will and put him over the slot and have him play, curl flat in that cover 3 defense, it's comfortable. He'll do it anyway. It's just in a little bit tighter of a box now, right? Because maybe he's lost a half a step from what he used to be speed-wise. But I think it's one of the best stories in football. I really do. And the fact that he comes out of this game as their highest graded player, I think it's incredible stuff. And the entire unit played well. Devin White was really solid. Like I said, Jermaine Pratt was really solid. So I think this Raiders, look, we've had a lot of questions about the back seven for this game. They held up against a very young New England offense. But these veteran linebackers, especially Adams, I think are super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when you even go back to LSU, right? When he was a major impact player, what was he doing? It wasn't necessarily he was like a single high, rangy type of a safety. He had some good plays when he was in coverage, but everything was downhill. It was because this guy could absolutely fly downhill. He had an elite coverage grade his last year there, but he also had an elite run defense grade too. So, like you mentioned, it's not foreign because we're seeing that the game is moving there anyways. We've seen over the last, I would say, 4 to 5 years, we see a lot of these teams. One on the other side of things is an example with a guy like Kyle Duggar. Is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? Whatever. And you try to get away with playing these guys who are maybe safety size, maybe a little bit bigger than a safety size, but you play them at the linebacker level because that's what they do best. They cover tight ends. They want to get in the backfield. They want to be blitzers in between gaps. They want to make tackles for loss. They're stronger when they get to the ball carriers to be able to actually wrap up, all that kinds of stuff. The question just always is, where is the line? And the problem is that the line always varies. Sometimes, like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, what's he like, 220?
Yeah.
And yet he hits like a train, right? You get some of these other safeties that might be 225, 230, and they can't do that. There's linebackers at the college level who are 225, 230, and we go, clearly you can't play at that weight at the NFL level if you're struggling to do that. But there are some players, Jamal Adams is one of them, that you go, yeah, put him at linebacker.
And I think the thing that sticks out to me the most when I'd watch him in run defense, the preseason reps, and then even in this game, the instincts are still all the way there, man. His football IQ and his instincts and his ability, even at a closer depth to the line of scrimmage, to read the offensive line, to read the backfield, and fire off and shed blockers. 'Cause look, we've seen as a pass rusher for years he can shed blockers, but his instincts in run defense are off the charts, even playing at a depth of 4 and 5 yards now instead of 8 to 10. Just an unbelievable comeback we're seeing right now.
Yep. It's good stuff from him. Most disappointing for me, and this is unfortunately just kind of how it is, I was already a little skeptical about how the Patriots coverage unit was going to look this season, even with Christian Gonzalez out there. He misses this game from a hamstring injury. You're missing week 1 due to a hamstring injury. That sucks. Hamstrings can linger. They can nag throughout the season. Even if you might get to like 80, 90%, okay, we got to get you out there. This is the nightmare scenario, right? Because the Pats coverage in this game, 42.2. That was 30th in the NFL. That was close to being one of the worst coverage performances that we saw in week 1. The danger is that you're so bad at coverage that you kind of go to Christian Gonzalez and you go, dude, can you play? I mean, can you give us anything? And when you have a hamstring injury, that's bad.
And at corner, if you're out there at 80%, it's worse than almost any other
position. Even a guy as
position.
talented as Christian Gonzalez, which unfortunately Christian Gonzalez at 80 or 90% is probably still your best coverage player. So now you get into the, hey man, I know your hamstring's not entirely better. Can you go this week? And now you risk, injuring it again. And so I know that Vrabel's going to hopefully handle this as best that he possibly can. Again, not that there's an exact this is exactly how it's done. It's totally a feel thing, and for Christian Gonzalez, it's certainly a feel thing because I know he wants to be out there. But this is when you get into dangerous territory, is you have your star corner who has a soft tissue injury that the rest of your group is so bad it's one of the worst in the NFL. Then you just have more and more pressure to play on a soft tissue injury, which is not good. So that was most disappointing to me. Anything else before we move on?
No, I mean, there's certain things I think both teams have to be better with, but I do think for the Raiders getting off to a good start, it's great to fly all the way out to the East Coast, about as long a road trip as they could take, and to get that win and for Geno Smith to look like that, that's a big positive in Vegas.
All right.
Oh, boy.
Lace up your shoes. Lace up your shoes for the victory lap that you get to take for this one, because even if it's just 1 week, it's just 1 week. The Dolphins and the Colts, this is Indianapolis, and boy, this was a butt whooping at its finest. Indianapolis wins this game 33-8. The Daniel Jones era has begun. Top 5 graded players that we have for the Colts in this one. Look at Edge 1. Look at Edge 1.
The interception, what a play.
Latu. You know what's funny about that interception? I'm going to break it down when I talk a little bit more about Tua Tagovailoa. I don't think he's supposed to be there. Like, I think he was literally just, roaming around watching Tua's eyes, and he made a hell of a play. But I watched Tua's turnover-worthy plays, and I was like, dude, I don't even know if I put as much blame on you for this one, because I don't even think he's supposed to be there. Anyways, 91.5 overall defensive grade. You love to see this as well. Tyler Warren, rookie debut, elite 90.4 overall grade. We said for so long that he was just destined to be an Indianapolis Colt. Now he is, and he's playing well. This is why. Safety Cam Bynum, an 87.2. Cornerback Xavier Howard with an 80.8. Center Tanner Bordolini, a 77.6. And then quarterback Daniel Jones in this one, a 72.8. On Miami's side of things, offensive tackle Patrick Paul was their top-graded player with an 84.9. Linebacker Tyrell Dodson with a 76.3. Center Aaron Brewer with a 70.8. Safety Minkah Fitzpatrick now back in Miami with a 65.5 to start this season. And then running back Devon Achane with a 64.6. Tua Tagovailoa in this one, a 52.5. All right, Dalton, go ahead. You told us all offseason, hey, the Daniel Jones edition, it's not just some punching line. It's not just, something that we go, oh, yeah, here's another. Oh, look at Anthony Richardson. He can't even beat out Daniel Jones. You said this had a chance to work, and boy, did it ever in week 1.
Did it ever.
How did it look?
I told you it was week 1 money, and Daniel Jones was money. And the entire thing, really. Look, Shane Steichen, when you look at, you know what they're calling it, Trev, the perfect game.
Who's calling it the perfect game?
Everybody is.
Who's everybody?
One of one, me. It's the perfect game.
Nobody's calling it the perfect game.
But you saw the stat on this, right?
No, I know. You're right.
First quarterback this century
Yeah.
to score on every drive of a game. I figured at some point Peyton Manning or somebody would have done it. That sounds like a stat that Peyton Manning would have accomplished. But an entire 7 for 7.
Now, you know who I actually thought would have had that is Drew Brees.
That's a good call.
Peyton, I understand not having it. Sometimes he has drives where he just kind of like, he
just take the day off.
He goes off the rails a little bit. Even like Brady, kind of the same thing. Generally, it's phenomenal. But like Brees, an assassin.
Because here's the weird part about that stat is generally though, like maybe a lot of those guys got close, but then you get to that last drive and you take a knee, right? And then it doesn't count. It still counts as a drive. So Daniel Jones.
So maybe Drew Brees did do this.
Well, no, if he took a knee at the end, it doesn't count.
But that's what I'm saying.
Not
maybe
every
he
drive.
really did do that. You're just taking
a kneel down is technically a kneel down is technically a negative play.
I know what it is.
It's one negative play added to the ledger. That's tough. Either way, the perfect game, Trevor. And honestly, it was the perfect game for more than anything for Shane Steichen. This is what he wants his offense to look like. That was my argument for Daniel Jones the whole time, is that he can run Shane Steichen's offense. And Daniel Jones grading is 72.8. They get that every week. They're going to be pretty good. There were some misses, and there was still some things. They scored 33 points. They scored on every drive. They could have easily scored the 45 or 49 that they had the potential to on these 7 drives. But I look at what Steichen did here. He still ran the ball 53% of the time. 24, almost a quarter, 24.7% RPO rate. If you stretch that across a whole season, that would have been the highest in football last year. 38% play action rate. 14 explosive plays and only 4 negatives, and you had the ball for almost 39 minutes. This is Shane Steichen's offense. Mm-hmm. And he needed a quarterback. He was talking about Daniel Jones afterwards and talking about some of the little details and checks at the line of scrimmage and just the ability to get us into the right play and even just the small things that you wouldn't often think about. That's what he said is the difference with Daniel Jones right now. And Anthony Richardson, obviously talented, very young. There's a lot of depth in this offense that he just needs to get used to, right, over time. Daniel Jones can do those things right now. So honestly, people may have expected us to come in here and give him a 95 grade, and there was some misses. And is it always pretty with Daniel Jones? Not always, but in this offense, he did everything exactly how he needed to against the Miami Dolphins team that's really struggling.
Yeah, look, he was certainly good in this game. I'm not going to call him great. I'm not going to call him perfect. But he was good. He was exactly what they needed to be. And certainly for the Colts defense to be able to take advantage of things like that. So I thought that, calling it a perfect game, you could print the shirts if you want. I'll take one. It's a medium. But I think that really it was just more of this was the perfect Shane Steichen game. I agree with you. Where he was saying, look what happens when I have a quarterback who can just operate things for me. Give me my healthy Jonathan Taylor that I can hand the ball off to. Give me a defense that is continuing to improve and now has Lou Anarumo as their defense coordinator, and we can win football games. We'll get to the Dolphins in a second because the vibes could not be any lower in Miami. But hat is off to the Colts and what they were able to do. I do think that, and kudos to you for saying like, hey, we got to watch out for Daniel Jones. This isn't just some like, oh, he happened to win it over Anthony Richardson, but he's also still going to be bad. You pointed out a way for him to be somebody that this team could win with, and certainly they were in week 1. My stat that told the story is, of course, Tua Tagovailoa. 4 turnover-worthy plays in this game. I want to focus on 2 of them specifically. One, not the Latu one. I mentioned that one.
He was freelancing.
Latu drops into coverage and he completely freelances and he cuts off the pass, and it's like, okay, buddy, great play. Obviously, like, you don't want Tua to throw it, but football is. I think people forget how fast football is. And at one point, Latu gets off the line of scrimmage and he kind of like drops to the same level as where I think the nickel defender is. And at one point, they're literally standing next to each other. And I think either the nickel defender kind of looks at him or he looks at the slot defender and he goes, oh, okay, he has this area. Let me go somewhere else. And it's at that moment that he just moves to the middle of the field that Tua throws the ball, and he kind of just goes, wait a second, and he puts his hands up and he gets the interception. So it was great, right place, right time for him, and he capitalized on it. I'm not really going to talk about the fumble either. Yeah, he's got to hang on to the football. You don't like any time the quarterback fumbles, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the other 2 turnover-worthy plays. The first one, they're down 3-0 in the first quarter. He overthrows Tyreek Hill horribly, and it gets intercepted. If he hits Tyreek Hill on the money, which we have seen him do many, many times before, it was on this deep crossing over route, Tyreek Hill scores. There's no one that catches him. That is a 7-3 ball game. It's different to start this game. But instead, it's a turnover-worthy play, and we're going the other way. Tyreek Hill's pissed on the sideline. Tua is obviously pissed at how things are going, and that's when the vibes really started to get bad in Miami because it felt like they were walking on thin ice anyways, and he airmails it past him on a pass that should have been a touchdown. This was not that difficult of a throw either. Not that playing quarterback is easy. I understand. I'm not trying to oversimplify a very difficult job. But he should have been able to hit Tyreek Hill in this pass, and it should have been 7-3 right there. The other one is a play where this one's a little bit more complex. The Colts come out, but like Lou Anarumo does, he likes to move his safeties up and down. He likes to confuse what the quarterback sees. Pre-snap, when the defense broke the huddle, they were in too high. So it's open middle of the field. So you think to yourself, for middle of the field routes, for dig routes, and like things that are going to like a deep cross or whatever it is, something that's going to attack over the intermediate middle of the field, I'm going to be able to hit that because there's not a single high safety there. But as they were rotating a guy pre-snap, there was pre-snap motion before the ball was hiked. One of the safeties comes down, the other safety rotates to a single high position. Tua, I can't remember exactly where he was looking, but he did not see the fact that safety now put middle of the field closed. And he tried to go to that player, and that was another turnover-worthy play there. These are the things that Tua has to be able to see when your goal is to get the ball out of your hands before 2.75 seconds, right? All of those things go into this. The Miami Dolphins want to be an offense where the ball is coming out of Tua's hands faster than average more times than every team in the NFL. They want Tua's time to throw between 2.5 and 2.6. They want him to have one of the fastest time to throws in the NFL because they know that they sort of have to mitigate some offensive line deficiencies, and they just want to get the ball in the hands of their playmakers to make things happen after the catch with all the speed that they have on their team. If Tua is going to be that kind of quarterback, he has to see that stuff. He has to see that stuff because you are not afforded the extra half second to second that some of these guys have where you see to yourself, like some quarterbacks, that exact same situation might have happened. But in different offenses, different philosophies, different structures, they might have gone to throw the ball, even maybe started to wind up. I'm doing it lefty for Tua, so you know that I'm authentic about it. They might have started to wind up, see the safety is there, and then kind of go, oh, okay, hold on, wait. And they would have broken the pocket. They would have scrambled and they would have escaped. That is not what Tua is taught to do. Tua is taught you have 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, get rid of the football. And if he is not an assassin about how he sees the field, that's the result. So that was my sort of stat that told the story about digging into Tua's 4 turnover-worthy plays. To me, it was a philosophical thing for the one, but the other one is just straight up, you got to hit Tyreek Hill. You have to hit that throw. And
the problem is it's philosophical, yes. They want to get rid of the ball quickly anyway. They don't have the pass protection for him to sit there and hold it for 3 and 3.
Right.
So for the sake of the pass protection, he can't throw it late. And I'm not always the biggest guy of like, arm strength is the barometer of every quarterback. But Justin Herbert can throw the ball late. Josh Allen can throw the ball a split second
100%.
late. Tua cannot. Tua's got, of the 32 starters, at bottom 10 arm in the NFL, if I'm being nice about it. I mean, it's not great. There's not a whole lot of drive. There's not a whole lot of extra gas in his arm like those guys.
I thought his arm was a little overrated when he was coming through the draft.
Right. Yeah. I mean, let's call it average. Whatever. The arm strength. They're for multiple reasons. He cannot afford to be late, which is the problem of now. If he's going to be on time and just miss, you have a bigger problem. Plus, we have questions about the offensive line. No, you mentioned it before. The vibes in Miami could not be lower. And there's a lack of, and to me, this goes back to the second half of last year. The game I'll remember for a long time. Thanksgiving night last year in Green Bay. From the first snap, they looked like they didn't even want to be out there. And there were moments in this game that I felt like this team just didn't want to be out there.
Well, I don't know. So my most disappointing is Mike McDaniel, and I don't know. I don't know how fair that is to even say Mike McDaniel, but I don't even know where else to place it. I mean, maybe the most disappointing is just I should say the vibes. But Tyreek Hill, end of last season, last game of the year, basically says I'm not going to be here anymore. I'm out.
There he is.
So Then he sort of walked that back and apologized. But even like during training camp, Tua was like, yeah, I mean, he's still working on getting everybody's trust back. It's like, okay, that's not good.
It's your best player.
I was going to say, you guys forgive him or not? Like, I mean, because if you didn't, then you might as well trade him. Because it was never going to be perfect for Miami. And Tua misses one throw. Tyreek Hill's kind of freaking out on the sideline a little bit. Now, to be fair, he wasn't like yelling at Tua or anything, but you could tell he's visibly frustrated. He was already frustrated last year. So now we're starting out. That relationship is already on, rocky ground, rocky foundation. Bradley Chubb, I don't know if you caught this, after the game, they asked him, they're like, hey, like, why couldn't you guys, defend the run better? And why weren't you guys, like, able to sort of just play better as a team? And he's like, everybody's freelancing out there. He's like, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but he said multiple times freelancing. Like, people were not playing together. So they're not even trusting the defensive structure that they're playing within. They don't even trust the calls. They don't even trust their assignments. They're just freelancing. That's what Bradley Chubb was saying after the game. And then Tua at the podium, again, I'm paraphrasing here, was basically saying they were asking him about, like, motivation for the team and, like, focus in the team, like, all that kinds of stuff, because, you get your ass whooped in the first game of the season. And he was basically like, yeah, it'll be interesting to see who shows up on Tuesday. And you're like, dude, this is game one, man.
Yeah. It's the problem of the very, very first job of any coach is the buy-in part.
Well, you have to command respect.
It's not the scheme. It's not situationals. That's all ancillary at a certain point. The first thing you need is every guy on a team to buy in. And the guys that don't buy in are going to be gone. And if you have a whole team that's not buying in, then you have a bigger issue, right? And this is what you have when you have a team, and a talented team. It's not like they have no talent at all. They got obviously a good defensive line. I think they didn't play well in this game. Hill and Waddle and Tua. This is a team that needs their best players to play their best to win, but they have the talent to do it. But if they don't have the buy-in, this game just looked like a lot of the games they played to me the second half of last year. It just the morale is way, way down.
Yep.
They're playing New England this week. And New England's going to be raring to go after losing a tight game this past week. We're going to find out just about everything left that we need to know. We're going to find out everything we need to know about the Dolphins this coming week against New England.
All due respect to New England Patriots, who I think are going to become a very good football team under Mike Vrabel. Miami should absolutely win this game. And if they don't, I don't know if there's a path of redemption.
But I can't sit here and say I'll say this for the Patriots, right? Very young team. Mm-hmm. Maybe some spots they're lacking talent. Mm-hmm. But at no point in that Raider game did they not look bought in.
No. But if
they're cohesive and the Dolphins aren't, then the Patriots will win.
But that's what I'm saying is the Dolphins should win this game, unless nobody's bought in. They are more talented than the Patriots. They should beat the New England Patriots. The game in Miami, they go into Foxborough.
I don't remember that part.
I would think that it would be in Miami because the Patriots just hosted and Miami just went on the road.
You can get 2 in a row maybe. It's in Miami, yeah. Going home to play the Patriots.
This is about as must-win of a Week 2 game as you're ever going to see for a head coach.
Yep.
For Miami. Anything else before we move on?
What do I have? The defensive line needs to play better. Like I said, offensively, you talked about Tua and Hill need to play better. Your best players on this defensive line, they got dominated by the Colts O-line. 40.7 grade as a unit. You're talking about Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Chop Robinson, Kenneth Grant, Zach. There's a lot of good players on a D-line. They got blown out in the trenches. And my most impressive, let's go back to the rookie from Penn State, Tyler Warren. He's a centerpiece in this offense already. Mm-hmm. He is just ridiculous. I think you know what? Maybe we didn't give him enough hype for potential rookie of the year. We didn't get a tight end last year despite a special season. Tyler Warren's already an integral part of this offense. 3.17 yards per route run. Not only volume with the 7 catches, but efficient as well. And how about an 88.6 run blocking grade? Just dominant on the ground, too. If he's going to do something, if he's going to do that both ways, you're talking about a guy who's going to be a top 5 tight end. Tyler Warren, he was great in the preseason, spectacular in this first game. We're going to talk about him a lot this year.
Yeah, we are. He's fantastic. Let's move on to Bengals-Browns.
Poor Tyler.
I was waiting for that.
There's 2 happy producers and 1 very angry one.
Yeah, our production suite is 2 Bengals fans and a Browns fan. So this is going to get interesting right here. If you hear like our mics turn off or maybe the cameras don't move, it might be because they're getting into a fist fight behind the glass there. The Bengals win this game. I don't really know how. 17-16. There are so many things to get into with this one. The top 5 graded players that we have for the Cincinnati Bengals. Linebacker Logan Wilson at the very top of the list with an 89.4. Edge rusher Shamar Stewart. Look at that, Dalton.
Oof.
Animal.
Trey's got some help?
Shamar Stewart's game is why PFF exists. Okay? 0 tackles, 0 stats on the stat sheet at all whatsoever. Absolute monster. If PFF did not exist, unless you had all 22, you would not be able to appreciate what Shamar Stewart was in his first game.
That's why you need a plus subscription
and he
right there.
Was awesome. 88.9. Edge rusher Trey Henderson, you mentioned right behind him with an 88.1. Cornerback Dax Hill is 78.6. And then safety Jordan Battle, a 76.9. Quarterback Joe Burrow in this game, a 75.6. On the Brown side of things, rookie linebacker Carson Schwessinger, stud. Went back and watched every snap that he played this past weekend this morning, and dude is flying. 90.0 elite defensive grade that we had this past week for him. Edge rusher Isaiah McGuire with an 88.2. Linebacker Devin Bush, an 87.5. Offensive guard Joel Bitonio, an 81.1. Cornerback Greg Newsome, a 76.6. And then Joe Flacco, 73.1. Dalton, sad to tell the story. What do we got?
I think what it comes down to is the Browns had several opportunities to win this game, as producer Tyler would certainly tell us, and they just didn't take advantage of those opportunities they had. Their second half drives, they had a touchdown leading it off, but then an interception, a turnover on downs in Bengals territory, a punt at the Bengals 42, which you maybe could have gone for, the missed field goal, which was just absolutely killer, and then a second interception later on, and then the game ends from there. Yeah, I mean, they had every shot to win this game. And I think the lesson here, when you're looking at the Bengals, if you're having any worry about any of this or that, the Bengals are just happy to get out of Cleveland with a win. Any time, doesn't matter what the records are, what you think of the teams. When the Bengals go to Cleveland, it's going to be rough and tumble. They beat them 21-14 in Cleveland last year, and I believe before that they lost 6 in a row in Cleveland. If they get out of Cleveland 1-0, I don't even think they care really what the stats look like. And the stats are actually, for a team that won, I'm actually incredibly impressed with some of the stats that came out of this game that you're going to go over. But you listen.
Is impressed the word?
Oh, I'm impressed. Yeah.
At what?
My favorite one is the fact that you can have 7 yards in the second half. You can have 7 yards in the second half and win a football game. I am impressed with that. Now, maybe not even impressed with any particular thing.
Yeah, I don't think impressed is the word.
Just the fact that it happened, I can appreciate that big time. And the Bengals, I don't think it's too much heavy analysis on their side. They got out of Cleveland with a win, and for them, that is just fine. I know some people are going to be like, well, they played like crap against the Browns. That's how this works. They have Myles Garrett. They've got a great D-line. It's a bad matchup for the Bengals in Cleveland, especially. The Bengals fans here will tell us all the time, we hate going to Cleveland. This is why, because the games end up like this. But at least they're on the winning end of it. I think at that point, brush it off. We'll analyze the Bengals side of things, honestly, more coming this week as opposed to in this game, because it's just, even though it's the Browns and they're not going to win a whole lot this year, it's such an awful matchup, and they're just happy to get out with a win.
Yeah, I can't believe the Bengals won this game. Joe Burrow says after the game, he was basically saying like, hey, like in years past, like we've lost these games.
True.
And it's like, buddy, this is one that you probably should have lost, and the other ones maybe you should have won. Look, obviously, again, like we've said throughout this entire show, a win is a win is a win, but we're looking into exactly how the game went to try to, to have actual takeaway points here. The Bengals in the second half, you mentioned, this is a very bad football team in the second half of this game. They had 21 total plays, negative 0.656 EPA per play, which is horrendous.
Going backwards.
Their drives in the second half, you ready for this? 3 and out, 7 plays for 17 yards off of an interception that they got, which they made a field goal for. 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. 5 out of 6 drives in the second half were 3 and outs.
Browns defense is always pretty good,
And the Browns missed I don't know. How far was the last kick for Andre Smith?
Not far.
I mean, they missed an extra point and they missed a field goal.
That'll do it. Was it 37? Maybe it was the distance on it. It was extremely makeable. Is the distance?
I mean, that's my most disappointing, obviously, because you leave 4 points on the board and you lose the game by 1. I mean, I felt like for as poor as whether it was the Bengals not playing as well as they needed to on their side, or whether it was you on defense forcing them to not play well, whatever percentage you want to have there, you gave yourself a chance to win this game in the second half and start the season 1-0. I don't think that the Browns are as talented as the Bengals are. I took the Bengals pretty easily in this game. I thought they were going to cover, but the Browns came out and played very well, specifically their young guys. Dylan Sampson was awesome. Carson Schlesinger was awesome. Harold Fannin Jr. was awesome. Like, these guys are fantastic. Cedric Tillman, for the most part, was good. I know he had the drop that turned into an interception, which is objectively not great. But for the most part, was good. Looked like a legitimate receiver for them. All of those things went the Browns' way. And I think building blocks, even though they didn't win this game, are really nice for them at some really important positions. The Bengals, I think the big takeaway here is that they just come out of the gate slow every single season. And we have been begging the Bengals for a long time, just don't get in a hole to start the year. Because it feels like they are consistently, when Joe Burrow is healthy, one of the most dangerous teams in the second half of seasons. Like last year, nobody wanted to play the Bengals down the stretch. Nobody. But the fact that they didn't get in the playoffs was because they started in a hole. And that has happened year after year after year. And so for the Bengals, the big takeaway is genuinely, I think, just, hey, the defensive line looked good. Shamar Stewart looked good. You like what you saw on the defensive side of things. Obviously, I think that was all good. But it really is just the fact that, hey, 1-0, baby.
No,
that's how I think you have to look at this if you're a Bengals fan.
Again, especially in Cleveland, they never play well in Cleveland.
Right.
It's just a thing. It's just how this works. They won by 7 last year, which was their first win. I believe it was since 2017 or 18. They squeak out this game. I think Zach Taylor is going to be perfectly content to just throw this game in the trash. And I think we will learn a lot more about the Bengals this week at home against Jacksonville. I think we're going to learn a lot more.
That'll be a fun game.
This game, it's just Bengals-Browns. It's such a problem. The D-line, the Browns' defense is still good. The Bengals have never had an answer for Myles Garrett. Everybody knows that. I mean, it's just get out of there with a win, and it's fine. The Bengals won week 1. When's the last time they did that? 2019 or whatever? I mean, when's the last time they won week 1? They just don't really. 2021. Well, they went to the Super Bowl that year, Eli. So there you go. Maybe we're doing that again. But I mean, get out of Cleveland with a win. It's fine.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep. I mentioned Schlesinger was awesome. 90.0 grade on 52 snaps. It wasn't a small sample size. He played a lot.
Oh, he's a starter.
83.8 coverage grade, 70.0 run defense grade, 76.3 pass rush grade. I mean, he was all over the place. The first quarter of this game, they were basically just using him as like a double mugged, almost like an on-ball linebacker, but just head up over the center and the guard. And then sometimes he would drop. Obviously, sometimes he would attack. But, as the game went on, second, third, fourth quarter, he was used more traditionally at the second level, and they were letting him fly around. Now, of course, the run defense grade being the lowest for Schlesinger is what you would expect to see. He is a lighter linebacker, like the conversation that we talked about, a couple of games ago. Schlesinger is like 220, 225. I don't know what he's officially weighing at now, what his playing weight is in the NFL. But when he was playing at UCLA, he was like 220, 225. And he was incredibly fast. He was incredibly quick. He'd close in on ball carriers. Pound for pound, he was a really good tackler. He had some good strength to him. But it was the run defense stuff. It was taking on pulling and climbing offensive linemen that he was going to lose. There were a handful of reps where that happened again this past game. But you love what you saw from Carson Schlesinger in this one. So he was my most impressive. I already talked about my most disappointing, obviously, being the Browns kicking game, because I felt like it was, obviously if you kick a little bit better, you win this football game. But that was my most impressive and disappointing. What do you have in either category?
For me, it's two sides of the same matchup. Those two edge players for the Bengals. Look, Trey Hendrickson had the most predictable monster game of the year this week. I mean, when you talk about the matchup mostly with DeJuan Jones, the Browns left tackle, Hendrickson, a 90 pass rush grade, 8 pressures, and 8 other pass rush wins. Ridiculous. 16 pass rush wins in total. Shamar Stewart was awesome, like you mentioned it, and a dual threat. Look, you talk about 3 pressures, 7 total pass rush wins, a batted pass, and then, of course, we knew he was really good in run defense at Texas A&M, 76.3 run defense grade. If Trey Hendrickson now has help on the other side there off the edge, This is a different defense. It's all of a sudden a different defense, and Al Golden with what he can do, and he can move Stewart around, he can blitz if he wants to. If they're both going to rush the passer well, he doesn't necessarily have to in a game like this. And look at the Browns' offensive tackles. I mean, you talk about next year's draft and having 2 first-round picks. I can guarantee you some of those tackles in college football are going to be guys that they're looking at. Because, I mean, Jack Conklin with a 50, and then he left with an eye injury. DeJuan Jones he's just not their starting left tackle. Cornelius Lucas, a veteran, he's not a long-term piece. Offensive tackle is a problem for the Browns. And right now, edge defender looks pretty good at it on both sides, and we haven't said that in a while. I know Sam Hubbard, he was slowing down a little bit, and he's, retired now, and they had to find his replacement in Shamar Stewart, but they look pretty good, at least for night one.
20 pressures allowed from the Browns' offensive line.
Yep.
Most in the NFL this week. Cannot believe that they did not address offensive line this offseason. I can't believe it. That is going to be my biggest storyline that I'm talking about for a team for the 2026 draft, I would say like early on, is Wyatt Teller, who is it? It's Wyatt Teller, Ethan Posick, DeJuan Jones, all are free agents this upcoming offseason. Bitonio, it's Wyatt Teller, Ethan Posick, and Joel Bitonio are all free agents this upcoming offseason. DeJuan Jones is one of the lowest graded offensive tackles in the NFL, and Jack Conklin is going into another year of his contract. He's under contract, I think, for 3 more years, but he'll be 32 next season. He'll be 34 when the contract is over.
And he's had a lot of injuries lately.
I have said this before. In 2 years, we have in 2 years we have a totally new starting 5 in Cleveland. And they have not kick-started that transition, and I think that was a bad decision by them. But I do think that they will hit the gas pedal on that this upcoming offseason. I think that at least one of their first-round picks is going to go to the offensive line because it's going to need to out of necessity. The Carolina Panthers traveled to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jags won this game pretty handily. I mean, this one was never closer than 0-0 to kick things off. I think the Jags controlled things the entire way. 26-10 was the final score here. Jacksonville's top 5 graded players in this one: linebacker Foyesay Oluokun with a 92.5, linebacker Devin Lloyd with an 86.9, tight end Brenton Strange with an 85.4, edge rusher Josh Hines-Allen an 82.9, safety Eric Murray an 81.0, and then Trevor Lawrence had a 63.0 in this one. In Carolina, their rookie wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan, their top graded player, at a 78.9. Cornerback J.C. Horn to 75.4, offensive guard Robert Hunt to 74.1, Mike Jackson at number 4 with a 73.6, and then defensive tackle Ashawn Robinson with a 69.9. Bryce Young in this game a 71.1 overall PFF grade. Dalton, South told the story.
Look, we saw this all last year in Tampa Bay with Liam Cohen, that he wants a balanced offense. He wants to be able to have a 2-dimensional offense. He's a guy, if he could run it for 200 and throw it for 200, he had a really good day that day. I think that's what you're looking at. You look at 63 play calls from Liam Cohen in this game, 30 runs, 33 passes. He wants it relatively balanced. This team ran for 186 yards, 6.2 yards per carry on their 30 design runs. Travis Etienne obviously did the most of that with just under 150. I think that's what you got. And you saw from this Panthers team, who had by far the worst run defense in football last year, that continued a bit in this game. 60.1 run defense grade as a team. That's still where you want to attack the Carolina Panthers, is on the ground if you can. Liam Cohen emphasized that. A great day to see from Travis Etienne. Somebody in that backfield had to step up. He was the ace in this game. I thought Trevor Lawrence was okay. There was some good and some bad. The accuracy was spotty, and it still kind of looked like he was figuring out the system and figuring out some of the vision to it as the game was going on. So there was some throws that were missed. Obviously, the interception wasn't great. Could have used a little more air on that ball. I thought Lawrence was okay, but at the end of the day, the Jags were able to control the pace with Liam Cohen's play calling and the run game. That's really the big thing that came out of this, because we've said for the last, several years, the Jaguars, they can't run the football. Mm-hmm. They just have it. It's such and last year especially, their offensive line, they have a hard time running the football. They found a way to do it. They got 200 rushing yards in this game. I need to actually see if they had that at all last year, if they had 200 yards rushing in any game last year. But Cohen in the play calling, you can see the influence in the offense. It's very much still a work in progress. I think it's not nearly all the way there to the success that they want it to be yet, but he's laying the foundation, and it looks a lot like it did with Tampa Bay last year.
Yeah, on Carolina's side of things, it just didn't look very confident and polished. I'll be honest. This game obviously ends 10-26, and I don't think the score, reflected that it was that close. But to be honest, Carolina scores sort of that late touchdown at the end. And he had 3 points in this game until, what was it, 4:74 left in the game, they score a touchdown there. But they had 3 points up until that point. It just also felt like, as I kept watching that game, it always just felt like the play clock was always like at 0 when they were hiking the football. And like sometimes, obviously, that's just going to happen in the game of football. But it felt like, okay, we're breaking the huddle. Now we're taking a look at things like, okay, like this. I see this pre-snap. Like, okay, this could be this look. And then it was like, oh, wait, 3, 2, 1, quick, hike the ball. And it just felt like whether it was that or timing up the pre-snap motion or like whatever it was, it just didn't feel super confident on Carolina's side of things when they were on the offensive side of the ball. And I felt like it was the opposite with Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence was asked after the game sort of like what the difference was, and Lawrence was like, I felt like again, I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially he was like, I felt like I had the answers to the test. Like I couldn't have felt more prepared about this game. When we broke the huddle, I had full confidence in what we were doing, why we were doing it, and they were able to go out and execute. Now, that doesn't mean that every single play is going to go correctly, but your number one job, you talk about sort of the X factors of being a head coach. You talk about buy-in. When you are building a team and building a roster, buy-in, commanding respect, that is the number one thing. Another major point of you being a head coach, especially if you are an offensive head coach, you have to instill confidence. You have to be able to not just explain to your guys what plays that we are running. You have to be able to explain to them why we are running them. This is why we are running this play. I am calling this play. And you don't have a full conversation when you're in the headset of your quarterback. You got to do that in training camp. You got to do that over the summer. If we're calling this is why we're calling it. And hopefully when the defense comes out, you go, okay, yep, they're in the exact look that we want them to be in for this play. Or you say, okay, they're in a different look. That means the progression might change a little bit here on this play. And obviously, like I'm sort of oversimplifying it there, but it felt like as I was watching that Carolina game, they were not nearly as quick to recognize where things were on offense. And it just felt like the offense was slow to identify. And I don't think this is all a Bryce Young thing. I'm not trying to like put this on Bryce. It just didn't feel like they had that tempo and confidence and timing that they needed to operate with to really be an offensive team to stay close in this game and win this game. It felt like they were still kind of playing in the preseason, in my opinion.
Yeah, a little bit. And I mean, I think you look at some of the adversity right now for this Panthers team. Here's what you're looking at. Their left tackle, Ike Ekwonu, was out for this game. Austin Corbett's back as the starting center, which is a big deal with everything you're talking about. He didn't play after week 5 last year with an injury. It was Cade Mays, but now Corbett's starting again, right? They just traded Adam Thielen, a reliable veteran receiver, and then 2 days after they traded him, you lose Jalen Coker for the first 4 games at least to an injury. So now you're thinner at wide receiver than you thought you'd be. You already have a really young football team when you talk about guys like Jatavian Sanders at tight end. So you have a young team trying to come together that's kind of dealt with some hurdles early in the season. And it actually, the more I think about it and some of the pieces that are missing all of a sudden, it doesn't necessarily surprise me that they were, it's not unprepared, but just not quite as far along as we thought they'd be right now. On top of the fact that I thought Anthony Campanile called a really good game, just changed the picture on Bryce a lot on defense. It was just he never got the same look twice in a row. So as a quarterback, you're already trying to diagnose everything in front of you, and then you're hoping my rookie number 1 receiver and my number 2 receiver in his second year is going to, and a young tight end room, and my center I didn't play with most of last year, and my backup left tackle. You're just hoping everyone else.
There's no tape on the Jags either.
Right.
It's week 1 of a new coaching staff. So again, I say all of this to this is what I sort of felt like I was watching with the Panthers, but that's not to say like it's going to be like this throughout the entire season. It was just I don't feel like Carolina, whether it was Canales or Bryce, had a confident feel for what the Jags were throwing out at them.
Agreed.
And there's no tape on it. There's no tape with these coordinators, with these players. So it's a really tough ask to do. But I think that's why you just saw them pretty slow out of the gate with this team. Most impressive for me was the Jags run game. I loved how good they were able to look. I think that Liam Cohen, for as much praise as he gets for what he did with Baker Mayfield and, what can he be for Trevor Lawrence, he ran the football. And you said that correctly with what they did in Tampa Bay last year. They were great at running the football. He was great at identifying what the offensive line does well, what his running backs do well, and leaning into that more. The most disappointing for me in this game was Xavier Legette. it is by no means over for Xavier Legette. He is going to continue to play this season. He has to play better. There's no debate about it. Xavier Legette in this game with no Adam Thielen, no Jalen Coker. Okay, 54.2 receiving grade, 7 targets, 3 catches, 10 yards, -3 yards after the catch. He has now played 17 games in his NFL career, and he has not had a single game receiving grade above a 68. He's never even had a game, one game in the 70s. It has to be better for a wide receiver that you rely upon a lot. Like that throw to the sideline. I'm not trying to put all of it on him, but like you've got to get 2 feet in bounds. Like you are an NFL wide receiver. You had plenty of space to make that catch. And that's like an encapsulation of Xavier Legette where it's like, man, we see it from you. Clearly, you have the strength for contested catches. You have some explosive ability to create that separation. You can be a vertical threat. You can be strong over the middle, but it's just the little nuances of the game that whether it's route running or creating those separations for a throwing window or getting 2 feet down to the sideline, like whatever it is, he has not taken that next step in the details of the game to be an effective NFL receiver consistently. And I think that's why Carolina goes out and they draft Ted McMillan when we thought they were going to draft defense. And they still needed defensive help. And they went out and they drafted Ted McMillan in the top 10 last year. I think it's because they realized that Legette was not going to be a wide receiver 1 for them. He at least has to be a wide receiver 2 for them. And right now, he has not had a single performance where he has even been a wide receiver 2 caliber guy at the NFL level. So again, it is in no way over for Xavier Legette. But these are the games where you need him to step up. You just traded Adam Thielen. You cut Hunter Renfrow. And then when you got rid of Thielen, you brought Hunter Renfrow back. And Jalen Coker's not in the lineup. If there's a time when Xavier Legette is going to shine, it is this time. And if he cannot shine while Jalen Coker's not in the lineup, now I'm getting worried. Yep. Now I'm going to start getting worried about him.
Absolutely. This is a team that wants to throw the ball downfield, and he was brought in to be the downfield threat, and it hasn't. So it's 17 games in, it hasn't worked so far. I mean, the one thing you can point to as well, kind of said the same thing about Bryce Young right around this week last year, and that turned around the second half of the season. Some guys need more time than others, but they do need him to be better than this right now, that's for sure.
Most impressive, most disappointing.
Let's go on the Jags defense. Like you mentioned, their highest graded player before, Foye Oluokun. You talk about stuff in the stat sheet: 9 tackles, 4 stops, interception, forced fumble.
He was stuffing the stat sheet.
He was stuffing it like Thanksgiving turkey.
There it is.
Forced fumble, pressure as a pass rusher, 92.5 cover. He just did everything. He was everywhere, and you want your middle linebacker to be everywhere in a game like this especially. And then on the other side, most disappointing, I'll look at a linebacker on the other side, and this was the part of the Panthers defense I had the most questions about is what's going on at linebacker. Christian Roseboom had a decent game, veteran, former Ram. Trevin Wallace, struggle. And you could tell, and I know you always loved him because he's a really good athlete, and there's that potential, right, that he can use that speed and athletic.
I always loved him.
Well, the athleticism, right? I mean, that's something you always talked about with Trevin Wallace, where it's like, he's a good enough athlete for this.
Well, sure. But I was very skeptical of him as a prospect.
But, right.
Yeah, I thought he got overdrafted.
And you see the instincts are lacking a bit still, right? And a lack of reps. He wasn't a starter last year. But, you love the speed, the athleticism. But it's his eyes, right? 38 run defense grade, 38 coverage grade, 29.7 overall. This linebacker unit is something I really question for the Panthers. More questions about it after week 1 with the way Trevin Wallace played.
Let's see, what game are we doing next? Oh, before we get to the next game, I gotta shout out the PFF app because if you guys don't have the PFF app, it's really cool for, especially if you are a bettor out there, some pregame bets that you guys can make. And I have to shout this out because it was very, very cool. We have, we use a lot of different things to come up with edge percentages. If you go download the PFF app and you go to the little betting tab there, you can see all this stuff. Edge percentages is basically like, okay, we'll shop the lines around, right? We'll look at the different sports books. We'll see what the lines are. We'll find out what the best edge percentage is, which means whatever the line that we think has the highest probability to cover based on our simulations, based on the matchup, based on the grades, all that kinds of stuff. The highest edge percentage that we had this week was Rocket Sanders, the running back for the Cleveland Browns, scoring a touchdown, anytime touchdown, because the odds were plus 2,000. And the reason why we had that as a high edge bet, even though it was a little bit lower of a cover probability, as you guys can see there. The reason why we love this as an edge bet is because the payoff was so fantastic, and we thought that the opportunity might be there for him. And the fact of the matter was, no Quinshon Judkins in this game. Dylan Sampson looked great. Loved how Dylan Sampson looked. His speed from Tennessee, which, by the way, least talked about 1,400-yard season, I feel like, ever was Dylan Sampson last year.
He was the engine of that offense.
100%. And his speed was a big factor. Why? He wouldn't get to be their goal line back. You got no Quinshon Judkins. Nick Chubb ain't there.
You got Jerome Ford.
Who you hand the ball off to? You might be handing the ball off to Rocket Sanders. And that's exactly what they did. So these are the kinds of things that you get to see if you guys have the PFF app and you go over to the betting tab. You can see all that kinds of stuff. Again, we're breaking down your bets into simulation and data and matchups. So I just wanted to shout that out before we got too far away from it, because that was a cool thing that we were freaking out at as we were all watching the games this past weekend. The Lions and the Packers. The Green Bay Packers win this game 27-13. The top 5 graded players that we had for the Green Bay Packers, all 5 spots are actually just Micah Parsons. No, they're not. Just kidding. Safety Evan Williams with a 90.5. Getting a big interception this game is a big reason why. Defensive tackle Devontae Wyatt with a 78.7. Linebacker Edgerrin Cooper with a 77.6. Wide receiver Dontavian Wicks with a 74.8. And then wide receiver Romeo Doubs with a 74.8. Jordan Love in this one, a 76.3. On Detroit's side of things, Brian Branch, an 85.1. His interception return for a touchdown that didn't count was the highest graded play that we had of any defensive player in the league this week. And then rookie wide receiver Isaac Tesla with that one-handed touchdown catch at the very end there. That happened to be the highest graded offensive play that we had. So Detroit had the highest graded single play performance for both the offense and the defensive side. But I digress. Edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson, number 2 on this list with a 72.0. Offensive tackle Penei Sewell with a 70.8. Tight end Sam Laporta with a 70.6. Wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown with a 69.8. Jared Goff in this one did not have a great start to the season, a 45.5. Dalton, Steph told the story.
Okay, so this was a fun split, right? Micah Parsons played, I believe it was 30 snaps in this game. And you kind of, one of the things that's been a lot of the focus now is when he was on the field in this, and he's going to be on the field a lot more in future weeks, obviously, versus when he was off. And I think when you look at Jared Goff splits, and the pass protection's a big part in the Lions' offensive line, and it's young guards and all of that, it's a big thing. But when you look at Jared Goff in his dropbacks, when Parsons was on the field versus off, I was fascinated by this because it's a massive split. All right, so let's go with Micah Parsons off the field, okay? Jared Goff, when Parsons was off the field, 18 of 20, 134 yards and a touchdown, 70 passing grade, solid, and a 3.1 average time to throw. All right? Back there, calm and cool, comfortable. It's Jared Goff football, right? Yep. Micah Parsons steps on the field.
What is Jared Goff football?
Oh, we know what Jared Goff football is.
That didn't explain anything to me, but go ahead.
I'm about to explain the other half of Jared Goff.
All right.
I'm only halfway through explaining Jared Goff football. Jared Goff football usually doesn't involve Micah Parsons because you don't like when it does.
Yeah.
That's the boogeyman, right? Okay. Parsons gets on the field. 13 of 19, Jared Goff. 91 yards, an interception, 3 sacks, 28.9 passing grade because of 3 turnover-worthy plays, and a 2.78 average time to throw. Everything was rushed. Even if Parsons, he didn't get a sack in this game. I believe he had 3 pressures, and obviously he was really good as a pass rusher, and he was used kind of situationally-ish in this game. It's the presence. It's the presence of Micah Parsons. This is the part where I broke it down with one of our film breakdowns maybe a month and a half ago, talking about why the Cowboys should extend him, is that Parsons makes everybody around him better. Just when he's on the field, all of a sudden, he's the focus. He allows now a guy like Rashawn Gary to get 5 pressures and a sack. Lucas Van Ness to get 4 pressures and a sack. Devontae Wyatt to get 4 pressures and a sack. And he did have a sack himself, actually, in this game. But it's that. It's the good players help you out because they're talented and they're good and they'll produce for themselves. Great players make the entire unit better. That's what Parsons already did across just 30 snaps for this defensive line. You push Rashawn Gary down to, okay, now he's like edge 2 on this team. And Lucas Van Ness is a part-timer. You could see the energy even from Van Ness, who struggled through his first 2 years, where it's like, oh, I've got some opportunities now because they're all sliding the other way with Micah Parsons. It affects the entire protection. And then with Parsons, you even see some reps where you go, he's lining up over the interior. And that's a huge problem for a team because now, especially a team like the Lions with a very young interior at both guard spots, Micah Parsons, it's not just about him and what he's going to get. It's what he's going to create for the rest of this defense. It's a scary thought because that defensive line dominated this game. All of those guys, not just Parsons.
Yeah, look, I'm in no way taking a victory lap here. It's 1 week. It's a long season. But part of what we saw this week is why I had the Lions barely missing the playoffs this year. And that's because I don't know if the new coaching staff with the Lions, replacing both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, are going to be able to mitigate what is the second or third toughest schedule in the NFL compared to strength of schedule, or when you look at strength of schedule based on win total that we had last year, knowing that some of the teams, even in their own division, are getting better, right? Like all of that factors into the Lions just straight up might have the toughest schedule in the NFL this year. They really might. With how good that division is, how all of those teams are getting better, all of that. Like they just might have the toughest schedule in the NFL this year. Green Bay is the caliber of opponent that they're going to see a lot. And the Green Bay Packers might be Super Bowl champions at the end of this year. I don't know. They got a couple of things to clean up, but man, did they look good this past week. Especially on the defensive side of the ball where Micah Parsons and the addition of what he could be in Jeff Hafley's defense looks really great. But on the Lions side of things, the stat that told the story for me, obviously it's a great one that you mentioned with Parsons on and off the field and the difference that he made for Jared Goff. Negative 0.106 EPA per play. That is the Lions' fifth lowest single game EPA per play since 2022. So since Ben Johnson was the offensive play caller for them, that's the fifth lowest game that they've ever had. Their yards before contact this week, negative 0.5. Their total explosive plays, passing and running, 4.
It's not the same.
They went up against a really good football team. Again, I'm in no way saying I told you so. I'm in no way saying this guarantees that the Lions aren't going to make the playoffs. But I am telling you that it's going to be a lot tougher this year for the Lions than it was last year. A lot tougher. You're replacing two of the best coordinators in the NFL from last season who went on to be head coaches. One of them, the crown jewel of the head coaching cycle, is coaching one of the teams that you're going to see twice a year with a really talented quarterback in Caleb Williams. We'll see how Caleb Williams looks tonight on Monday Night Football, obviously. But I'm worried. I am worried about the Lions. I am worried that that offense is not going to be explosive enough to best what might just be the toughest schedule in the NFL. I get worried. Or not saying that they won't best it, because they will win some big games. But can they win more than they lose enough to potentially make the playoffs again in what is, in my opinion, the toughest division in football? And I think it was a tough test, and obviously you're starting off on the wrong side of things this week, but the lack of explosives was tough for me, and especially because not that the book hasn't, it felt like always been out on Jared Goff. If you pressure him, if you can rattle him, obviously he doesn't play well. That's kind of the book on every quarterback, but for somebody who is as immobile as Jared Goff is, that rings even more true. You're going to see a lot of teams just try to bring pressure to him. And then it's going to be up to the coordinator to figure out how to game plan and scheme up those hot reads to get the ball out of his quick to the playmakers that he needs to. Because Ben Johnson was excellent at that. Jared Goff, the narrative about Jared Goff and him being bad under pressure, that's why the Rams traded him.
Yep.
Right? So this has always existed for Jared Goff. But Ben Johnson was excellent at not just reacting to teams that wanted to do that, but getting on the offensive about it. Pre-snap motion, play actions, rollouts, things that the defense wasn't ready to see. And he was so excellent at that. Can Detroit still do it? Can they still stay one step ahead in the chess match? Because they weren't able to this past weekend. And it was a really good team that they went up against. But that is what I'm watching for the rest of the season with Detroit.
And at the end of the day, yes, and Ben Johnson was playing chess when everybody else was playing checkers. But they also mauled people up front.
They did.
And what we're not used to seeing is an offensive line where in this game, Penei Sewell grades a 70, and the other 4 are below 60. And even your two great tackles didn't play up to the standard that we're used to. If their offensive, and then it's the domino with Jared Goff and the explosiveness. And look, this Detroit team ran for 46 yards in this game. And they were never completely blown out of this. I mean, for a while it was, 17-6? You're not out of a game at 17-6 in the third quarter. They couldn't run the football. They couldn't pass protect. Up front, the Packers were the more physical team. Yeah, they were jacked up because Micah Parsons was there, but they got whipped across the board up front. And what we're not used to seeing is this Lions offensive line have bad games, but the reshuffled interior and now the pressure for Sewell and Decker to perform at an elite level, this is an issue. And if they don't do it, this is always, like you mentioned, it's always been a thing with Jared Goff. In a clean pocket, he plays like a top 8 to 10 quarterback. Under pressure, he has no answers. He can't throw off platform. He's as statuesque as any quarterback in the league. He's not really going to move. So they need to get in these. They need to get in the schemes. They need to help this offensive line out. Or look, we're playing a rookie and a guy who's now just made his third career start at the 2 guard spots, and a center who's had below average grades the last couple of years at guard. Maybe it's just an issue. Maybe it's just a chronic issue where we go, this Detroit offensive line is just not going to be what we're used to seeing. And the rest of the offense is going to be not what we're used to seeing because of it.
Most impressive, most disappointing.
Boy, remember like a year and change ago when we used to talk about the middle of the Packers defense and go, man, this is really a problem. And then since then, they've acquired Xavier McKinney and your guy, Adrian Cooper, you're going to talk about. And how about another one at safety back? Evan Williams. This is just a good football player.
Gem of a 4th round
This
pick.
is just a really good football player. He had an interception in this game, an 86.8 coverage grade, 3 targets in his direction, allowed just 5 yards. Does it just feel like once or twice a game he just pops up and makes like one of the 5 biggest plays of the game?
He certainly did at the beginning of last year.
And the way that he plays is such a perfect complement to the center fielder back there and Xavier McKinney. Like they need, between him and Javon Bullard playing that hybrid slot, strong box safety role, like the two of them are just such a great complement, and they allow McKinney to sit back there and do what he does best. Evan Williams is a fantastic football player, and it just feels like even if you don't notice him every single snap, there's 2 or 3 plays a game that it feels like, man, that guy's just so good. And he was really good. He was their highest graded player in this game. The interception was fantastic. Get a perfect read, perfect jump on what Goff was trying to throw to St. Brown there. I mean, the middle of this Packer defense now is just fantastic. I've said it. The only question I have about them is the outside corner spots, but Evan Williams only makes them better, and he was fantastic in this game.
Yeah, Evan Williams has been a stud. Adrian Cooper has as well. He's my most impressive in this game. 79.8 defensive grade on 67 snaps. No category, which is run defense, pass rush coverage, below a 72. You know, when I was watching Adrian Cooper when he was at Texas A&M, I had no doubt that this guy could fly to the ball, right? Ball carriers, if they're going to the flat, if it's outside zone, like whatever it is, like if this guy's a backside pursuit player, like I had no doubt that he could be a good run defense player. Triggering downhill, he was fantastic at. Retreating in coverage, I was a little skeptical about. He had the movement skills, or the explosiveness, I should say, to do it, but he looked a little bit clunky. He wasn't always confident retreating as he was going towards the line of scrimmage, which is often the case with linebackers. A lot of his high coverage grades that we had in our system were, okay, he's covering the running back in the flat. So it's not like he's retreating in coverage, and it's not like a Tampa 2 mic drop or something like that. Like he's still going forward towards the flat. It's just that's technically a coverage rep for him. So I was skeptical. I figured that he could be a good run defender, but I was like, all right, well, I mean, I guess he could be a good blitzer as well, but he doesn't really like have pass rush moves. He doesn't really have that savviness to him yet. He looks excellent. He looked excellent last year. He looked excellent in the preseason. He looks excellent now in his second year as a pro. And he's a stud, man. Brings so much speed and versatility to what the Packers do at that second level. You've talked about last year how much of a difference Xavier McKinney meant on the back end to what Jeff Hafley wants to do in that structure there in the defense. We talked in the offseason, of course, about what Micah Parsons does as a solo pass rush winner for this team that they did not have last year, again, in this even 4-3 defensive front, which the Packers are running for the first time in, a decade and a half. Adrian Cooper is just as important. When you have a player who has that kind of athleticism and anticipation for where the ball is going, now you have you truly have a 3-level leader of the defense. You have Micah Parsons, you have Adrian Cooper, you have Xavier McKinney. There is a good chance that on any given play, all 3 of those guys aren't going to fail. Somebody's going to pick you up. Maybe McKinney gets burnt in coverage. It's all right. Micah Parsons got there in 2.5 seconds. Maybe Micah Parsons gets double teamed or whatever, and the running back actually gets to bounce to the outside. All right, Adrian Cooper's got him because that means that somebody's free. It's just the chances of all 3 of those guys failing on a single play is so small now. that you have to feel good about that when it comes to Packers defense.
I think when you look at Cooper, and I like that you brought up that he wasn't below a 72 in any of those categories, because there's so few linebackers now who can do everything, but the great ones can do everything.
Sure.
And you think about Fred Warner and Demario Davis, and at times, Roquan Smith and guys like that, the best linebackers, and Zach Bond, right? The best linebackers in football, they're talented enough to do everything. To be honest with you, what Cooper's shown us through a year plus, we could at some point be calling him the best linebacker in football. That's how good and that's how versatile he is.
I was disappointed at the young guards for the Detroit Lions as well. I talked about how I said it was negative 0.5. It was actually negative 5 yards before contact. The Lions had in this game, it was negative 5 total. And I think a big reason why is you're taking a step back on the interior. Christian Mahogany, 43.9 pass blocking grade in this one. Tate Ratledge, 39.2 pass blocking grade, 7 pressures and 3 sacks allowed from those 2 players. And so you're shifting things around on the interior offensive line. Taylor Decker also didn't have his best day. I mean, Penei Sewell I thought was fine. He had some battles with Micah Parsons. Shout out to our guy, Teron Armstead, who was highlighting that last week, which you guys can see every single week on the preview show. We're going to have Teron Armstead previewing a trench matchup every single week. That was the one that he previewed this week, and it was fun to watch that one. But man, the rest of the offensive line, I think outside of Penei Sewell, really struggled. So what about you? Most disappointing?
They drafted Terrion Arnold last year. They brought in DJ Reed in free agency to bring stability to this cornerback room through week 1 of this season. Not great. DJ Reed, 30.5 coverage grade, 47 yards allowed, also committed a penalty. Terrion Arnold, who was battling his rookie year through a lot of reps and a lot of tough reps, but gave up 86 yards in this game also. So they got to be better on the outside for the Lions as well.
The Los Angeles Rams and the Houston Texans. Low-scoring game, but it was a fun one. I mean, these are 2 of the best teams in the NFL, I think. Rams win this one 14-9 in a thrilling fashion, which is how they were able to put the game away. For the Rams, I think the question mark going into this offseason was always, if Stafford's healthy, I mean, this is still one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL. That proved to be the case for Stafford.
They looked pretty healthy.
They were fantastic. The top 5 graded players that we have for the Los Angeles Rams, wide receiver Puka Nacua, dude.
Every week.
We're at the point where I'm gonna talk about this a little bit more in a second, but he is so damn good. He is so good.
And he did this
always open.
He did this with a gash in his forehead too. Has to come out with a giant bandage on his forehead.
Warrior.
It doesn't matter. Absolutely.
91.6 overall grade in this one. Linebacker Nate Landman with the peanut punch of maybe the season, and how he was able to punch the ball out from Dare Obungawale and get that ball back for the Rams. 90.7 overall grade for him. Edge rusher Jared Verse picking up right where he left off last season. 90.6. Somebody who I think either him or the guy that we're about to talk about is going to win defensive player of the year. I really do. I think it's going to be those 2 guys. Edge rusher Byron Young with a 78.5, wide receiver Devontae Adams with a 66.3, and then quarterback Matthew Stafford in elite 92.9 to start the season. The other guy, the guy that I did pick for defensive player of the year, he's number 1 on this list for the Texans. Will Anderson Jr., a 91.0 grade to start the season. His running mate, Danielle Hunter, fellow edge rusher, 86.0. Linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair with an 80.8. Cade Stover, their tight end, with a 70.9. And the defensive tackle, Tim Settle, with a 67.7. Quarterback C.J. Stroud in this game, a 73.1. Dalton, where are we going to start the conversation here?
Well, as we figured it might, this game was about pressure and 2 teams that struggle to pass protect. The Rams had the 3rd worst pass blocking grade in the league last year. The Texans we projected to have the worst offensive line in the league this year. And both of those things lived up to expectations in this game, and you saw it from all those great pass rushers in those top 5s. The Rams, a 33.3 pass pro grade in this game. The Texans, a 41.2. This game was about, it was low scoring 14-9. There were exciting moments in it, but it was really about just quarterbacks under duress all day and the answers that these quarterbacks brought to that pressure. Matthew Stafford, average time to throw, 2.33 seconds. Got the ball out quick. He's the wily veteran, right? He's been around since 2009. He's been doing this for a long time. He knows how to handle pressure. If your line can't protect you, protect yourself. C.J. Stroud, took him a little longer, 2.78 seconds. Clean pocket passing grade. So even when you get your opportunities, when you are protected, can you take advantage? The guy who took advantage of this game was Matthew Stafford. In clean pockets, Matt Stafford, 94.4 passing grade. He's still, when he's protected, one of the best quarterbacks in football. C.J. Stroud with a 70 passing grade in a clean pocket. Just didn't have as many answers in Houston's offense for the pressure, the constant pressure that was coming their way. And that's going to be a theme in Houston. It could be a theme for both of these teams. Obviously, neither one of them is hoping for that, but certainly in Houston, it's a big concern. And to the point where I even think Sean McVay did the better job in this game of at times protecting Stafford from pressure as a play caller. I don't think there's any better example than the very last play that they ran on offense. It was a 3rd and 8. They're trying to get one more first down to ice the game. And, it's a thing where, okay, you could run the ball and make Houston, burn their last time out and then just play defense. You've been rushing, but you don't want to give Stroud that shot, right? So what does he do? He gets under center. It's not an obvious pass set. He gets under center. He's got a tight end and a fullback on the field, and he calls a bootleg. And he sneaks Nakua, I believe it was, back underneath the formation.
Yep.
And they get the first down after the catch, right? And what you didn't have to do was put Stafford in one of those drop back situations where Anderson and Hunter know it's coming, right? You get under center. That's really a big advantage of playing under center so often. I think the Rams did it more often in this game. It's just about having answers for pressure in a game. And yes, it's 14-9. Offensively, everything was ugly. But the Rams had more answers for it. And Stafford, you could tell, he's the guy who's in the league now for his, 17th season. Whereas C.J. Stroud is in his 3rd year in his first game with a new offensive coordinator. Different answers for pressure. Stafford had just a few more of them.
Yeah, and to be honest, that last play, for as much as it was about McVay and Stafford, to me, it was mostly Nakua. It really was, because if you watch that play, they've got Nakua close to the line of scrimmage, so you don't know where he's going to go. He's sort of got a two-way go that you can operate with. I believe it was Jalen Petrie who's on him in single coverage, and the second that he gets up to Petrie, he closes the cushion on him, and the second he gets up to him, I believe, if I'm remembering this correctly in my head, Petrie goes to get hands on him, goes to press him because they're within the 5-yard contact window, and Petrie wants to be physical with you because he wants to get up, he wants to get his hands on you, he wants to make contact because then he can stay hip to hip with you, and he knows that he's got him at that point. His hands go out, and Nakua just goes, whoop, nope, sidesteps it, 2-hand swipe, that's all you need. He goes to the sideline, there's the throwing window. So as much as it was, you got to give him credit of the play calling and what Stafford was able to do under pressure and how he was able to complete the pass, to throw on the run. Nakua is the guy.
Yeah.
Like Nakua makes that play. And we have to start talking about, he was, I think, wide receiver 6 for me when I was doing the wide receiver rankings heading into the season because of how great he has been over the last 2 years. Genuinely, I think we have to put Nakua in the wide receiver 1 conversation. Like, his numbers, in my opinion, back that up.
The efficiency is ridiculous.
Now, is he as athletically talented as a couple of these other guys that we would talk about at the very top? A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson? No. But the job of a wide receiver is what? Get open, catch the football. He does it as good as any wide receiver in the NFL. Any wide receiver in the NFL. He may have to win more with savviness, quickness, and just anticipation mentally, but he does. He does that. What he had in this game, 11 targets, 10 catches, $130, 92.3 receiving grade. He has more single game receiving grades above 90 than he does below 60 in his career. I want everybody to know this and remember this. A PFF grade, the way that things work, it's a little different because if you think about it just like school, you think like, 60s, 50s, horrendous, absolutely terrible. If you just have a base even game, you're going to grade somewhere around a 60. Like, it's right around the 60. It's not a 75 like a C is. I think a lot of people think like a C, that's average. So like 75 is average. That's not how it works with our grading system. 60 is basically just like, yep, you were out there, you were replaceable, you didn't ruin the game, you didn't make a big difference. 60 is just sort of like you're playing the game, that's an average type of player and an average type of performance. Nakua has had more elite 90-plus single game grades than he has had below average performances in the NFL through 2 years in one game. Nuts. That's nuts. He's unbelievable. They drafted an absolute gem. For him to go to that spot with that head coach, that quarterback, and to be honest, that mentor of Cooper Kupp teaching him the ways when he was a rookie, they have one of the best receivers in the NFL.
And he now plays the same role that Kupp does, where literally, what's Puka Nakua's role? It's everything. Right, he's motioning all over the place. He can be underneath the formation. He can run it short. He's not often on those go balls and vertical things too much, but he's a first down machine. Like you mentioned, he understands coverages, and look, he's tough as nails.
Oh yeah,
it's just unbelievable.
Yes.
Even in this game, he leaves. I don't know if he had to get stitches or not, or they just patched him up or whatever. But he comes back with this giant patch.
They just
on
took a stapler to his head.
Probably, and he probably liked it. Honestly, that's how tough he is. I mean, geez, it's it's one of those things where he's just so darn tough, and you can ask him to make any play, whether it's after the catch or any catch over the middle of the field, and high vol. He doesn't care. He doesn't care if he gets 20 targets in a day. Okay,
he wants 20 targets in a day.
That's what I'm saying. That's business. That's just what we do around here. And the fact that it's so hard to defend a guy like that, that's all over the place. When you also still have maybe a future Hall of Famer in Devontae Adams, anytime you want to get in man-to-man and follow Nakua,
right?
Well, you got Devontae Adams sitting right out here too. That's why they signed him, because he can still win one-on-one. If Stafford's healthy and they can protect him a little more often in this game, a lot of teams are going to be like this against Houston. That's as good an offense as any in football, especially because Nakua is right at the core of it. He plays all 17 games. I think with the target share and all the ability that he has, you talk about a guy with Offensive Player of the Year potential.
Yes.
Because we talked about his efficiency a lot. He was the highest graded receiver in football last year. He just missed a few games. So, no, he's ridiculous. And Matt Stafford was absolutely ridiculous. I believe 5 big-time throws in this game total for Stafford. Just nuts the way he can still throw the ball.
Nakua is plus 1,600 on DraftKings for Offensive Player of the Year. He has the same odds as Justin Jefferson.
You making suggestions right now?
No, I'm just telling people. I'm just reporting.
Good report.
I'm just a mere reporter.
Fair and accurate.
Most disappointing in this game for me is the Texans' offensive line. Look, you made your bed. Now you got to lie in it. You might have made the decision for the right reasons, moving on from Laramie Tunsil. Perhaps that in the long run is going to be the best thing for the Texans organization. We told you it probably wasn't going to be in the short term, and this offensive line is not good. 7 snaps in this game with a time to pressure quicker than 2 seconds. You don't even have the ball. You don't even have the time to throw the ball away, basically, in under 2 seconds. When you lose that quickly, you're basically just giving up a sack. You're hoping that it's not a fumble. You're hoping that it's not a turnover-worthy play at that point. And if you are getting pressured below 2 seconds, you're almost thinking a sack might be the best-case scenario for you. They had 7 plays where that was the case. The only team that had more was the Tennessee Titans, which we'll get to in a second. But it was not a good performance for the Texans' offensive line overall. They're still trying to figure out who their best 5 is. And it sucks because, again, the reported reasons why they moved on from Laramie Tunsil were they didn't love maybe the leadership or role model example maybe he was setting for some of the younger offensive linemen and work habits. I don't know. It's just these are the things that I read that were reported. So you trade the only guy on your offensive line who really had any semblance of success over the last couple of years, specifically last year, and now we're sitting here with C.J. Stroud and we go, well, might be a waste of a year because we can't block for him. Because if they have a bottom 5 offensive line in the NFL, I think they can still somehow make the playoffs and win that division. But I think the Texans should be clearly the best team in that division. And with the offensive line the way that it is, I cannot confidently.
I mean, that's the thing. They are maybe Daniel Jones putting up an argument. I'm kidding. They have the best quarterback in the division. They're the most talented team in that division.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you got to win ball games. And there's so many great defensive linemen in the NFL now that almost every single team has at least one. Even if you play a team, whatever, like the Cleveland Browns, and they have Myles Garrett. Or next week, you're playing Tampa Bay next week. Who in their interior is blocking Vita Vea? Even a problem like that. It's not like they can run the ball either, right? I mean, this Houston team, this is the problem. You project them, you look at the names on their roster, the edge players, the corners, the quarterback, Nico Collins, everything. And then you look at this offensive line, and it's bad enough to shut down the whole operation to where you have this great team that played a great defensive game for the most part. Mm-hmm. They scored 9 points. And, okay, next week you get Todd Bowles and all the blitz packages. Then you get Josh Hines Allen in the Jaguars. Then you get the Titans who got a developing It's every week. You have to block somebody every week.
I mean, if you hold Stafford to 14 points, you should win that game.
Sure.
You should absolutely win that game if you hold Matthew Stafford to 14 points.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem. I think were they one of just 2 teams this week that didn't score a touchdown? I think that's correct. The Giants also didn't score. They're one of 2 teams this week, I think, that didn't score a touchdown.
O-line.
I mean,
root of the issues.
That's
for both
all.
Teams.
If you can't block people, you can't win.
Who's your most disappointing?
Most disappointing. Did I have the Texans O-line written down?
No,
they're gonna. They're gonna have Nico. It's Nico Collins, but also, I mean, it's tough.
You need
a center. You want to center the passing game around Nico Collins.
But it sucks because the Rams had the same issue, right? They couldn't pass protect worth a damn. Nakua goes off.
Yeah.
So like that, and obviously McVay is who he is, and we talk about McVay the way that we do as an offensive play designer and a head coach for a reason. But I agree with you having Nico Collins on here. Maybe it's not a Nico Collins thing. It's just what's most disappointing is the Nico Collins idea, because you look on the other side and the Rams offensive line wasn't much better than yours, and they still got Nakua the ball.
Yeah.
So
it's tough. The irony of it being Nick Caley calling the plays for the Texans, who was with the Rams last year, and now he's over in Houston. I mean, it's tough. The Texans, we're going to be talking about our previews of Houston games are going to get really boring because we're probably going to talk about the same thing every single week.
Yeah. 49ers and Seahawks. What a thrilling game this was. San Francisco wins this game in Seattle, 17-13. Top 5 graded players that we had for the San Francisco 49ers. Tight end Jake Tongas. Look at that. 84.5 catching the game-winning touchdown. Didn't think I'd say that name. Edge rusher Nick Bosa with an 82.5. He was absolutely dominant down the stretch, especially in the fourth quarter and those last couple of drives there. Wide receiver Ricky Pearsall with a 77.2. Linebacker D. Winters with a 76.7. Offensive guard Ben Barch with a 73.7. Brock Purdy in this game, a 69.4 on Seattle side of things. Cornerback Josh Jobe with an 89.8, highest graded player in this game. Offensive tackle Charles Cross with a 79.7, a good, honestly, like a pretty good score, knowing that he went up against Nick Bosa a handful of times. Linebacker Ernest Jones with a 78.7. Wide receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba with a 76.1. Defensive tackle Leonard Williams a 70.2. And Sam Darnold in this game, an 82.6 overall grade. Dalton, Seth told the story here.
Pretty simple, actually. I think we, in the preview I talked about, okay, does Seattle have a good opportunity to run the football, considering San Fran's youth on defense and their lack of run defense last year, the 5th worst run defense grade in football? They weren't able to do it. They didn't have any explosive runs, 3.2 yards per carry, only 2 missed tackles forced by Zach Charbonnet, and because of that, they just never got in the groove of the layers of Clint Kubiak's offense. They didn't have time. They only had the ball for 22 minutes. Everything was just stagnant for Seattle's offense because they couldn't run the football. And yeah, you're breaking in a young interior offensive line. Abe Lucas is healthy, and he gets the tough matchup against Bosa most of the time on that side. But this Seattle team's going to have a hard time winning if they don't run the football well. It's the base of this Clint Kubiak offense. Didn't happen in this game. The Niners' run defense stepped up. Fred Warner, as always, was really good. That's not news to us. Nick Bosa obviously was great and had the closing play, with forcing the fumble of Sam Darnold at the end. But at the end of the day, Seattle, Clint Kubiak, the base of this offense is the wide zone run game. Never got to it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are going to be – they're going to get on, like, Sam Darnold's grade. They're going to be like, how are you giving Sam Darnold – how is he getting, like, an 82.6? Remember, guys, it's not like – a PFF grade isn't, how close did you get to passing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns in a day. Like, it's about doing the job that is asked of you and the best that we can interpret it and how well and how efficient you were in doing that. He had 28 total dropbacks. He had 16 completions on 25 attempts. He had 150 passing yards, but he did not have a turnover-worthy play in this game. His average time to throw was below 2.5. It was 2.38. So, he was very quickly getting the ball out of his hands. So, because of that, there weren't a lot of pressures that were on him. He wasn't taking a lot of unnecessary hits or sacks and things like that, which obviously goes into playing things well. And he wasn't just, the average depth of target, 8.8. Okay, it's not like the highest. We're not in the double digits, but like 8.8 is not horrendous. When you look at some of the other statistics as well, it's not like he was just this giant check down Charlie. When it came to throwing past the sticks, he threw past the sticks 48% of the time, so about 50% of the time. That's not terrible. And when it came to air yards, 68% of his yards came through air yards, so he's doing that with his arm. His adjusted completion percentage was over 70%. It was 70.8. So, like, yeah, did Darnold light the world on fire? No, but he didn't make mistakes, and he made a couple of big plays. He had one big-time throw to one turnover-worthy play. So that's how we get to the grade. I know a lot of you guys, like, you question the grades of quarterbacking and things like that when it comes to versus the common stats, but, like, that's how we get there with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold didn't really do anything. And when you look at the last play that ended the game, I mean, he's winding up to throw the ball, to throw to a receiver that is open, if I'm remembering this correctly, and he hits the back of Abe Lucas because Abe Lucas just got bull rushed straight into his lap by Nick Bosa. That's not on Sam Darnold. Why would we ding Sam Darnold for that? So he didn't have a turnover-worthy play. He had a big-time throw. He didn't have a lot of opportunities, or he wasn't asked to, hold on to the ball forever and chuck the ball deep down the field. But even for being as conservative a game plan, like, he was throwing it where he needed to go. And he did enough for Seattle to win this game, given the script that it was and how it played out. So, again, I know a lot of you guys, you ask about quarterbacks and grading all the time, but that's just a little look into sort of like how we got to the Sam Darnold grade and sort of how we got to that point with him. But I think that overall, you've talked about the run game with this team and just not being explosive enough. They had 4 drives in this game with 4 plays or less. Like, it's just, we've got to sustain things a little bit more here. And ultimately, I think that this was the Seahawks game to lose, and they did end up losing it. You look at how many players were out for the San Francisco 49ers, how many guys got injured during the game, and it just felt like that was the game where they gave up the explosives, and they didn't really have a lot themselves. So where Sam Darnold grades out well, this might be a little bit of the Kirk Cousins thing, right? People got mad at PFF when Kirk Cousins was grading out very well, but he wasn't necessarily pushing the ball down the field the way that the Vikings needed to for him to win that game. But sometimes their offense just wasn't necessarily designed to do that. And I think that today they kind of wanted to warm Sam Darnold up to it a little bit. He has a high PFF passing grade. In the end, they didn't score enough points to win the game. But they played well enough to win the game.
They were in the red zone to end it. They were about to, and Bosa made a play that superstars make.
They could have very well gotten to that point. And so, like, okay, like, what if they rush for a touchdown, right? What if they get to that point? Let's say Abe Lucas holds up a little bit better. Sam Darnold checks the ball down. I don't remember what down it was, but, like, let's just say that drive ends with a rushing touchdown. Seattle wins the game.
Then he's hailed as a hero.
I don't think that people bat an eye at his PFF grade.
No.
And the reality is that, like, his grade shouldn't change for the results of the game. And in reality, we would just look back at it and we go, did you see that throw to Jackson Smith-Njigba up the sideline? That's what we would remember. Well, that part still happened. And the turnover to end the game, obviously, I just don't think was his fault. So I'm not trying to, like, make all these excuses for Sam Darnold, but, like, everything is we try to contextualize everything. We try to grade every single player, every single play, every single game. Like, that's what our motto is here. And, like, that's how we get to the conclusion of Sam Darnold's passing grade. So I didn't plan on going on that tangent, but I know that people are probably going to ask about it because he's one of the higher graded quarterbacks, and they lost, and they only scored 13 points.
It's the constant battle, whether it's within PFF or not. Anybody talking football, it's the constant battle of, is it all the quarterback's fault or is it all the credit he's getting? Well, no. That's not how this works, right? Like, yeah, Abe Lucas on that play didn't quite do his job, right? Or they didn't run the ball well enough. And it's all the stuff even coaches talk about. You go, as a team, that's how it works. It's very rare that one guy either wins you or costs you a game, right? I think even for as much as we talk about the most valuable guys like the Joe Burrows and Lamar Jacksons and Josh Allens and those guys, where it's like it might feel like a one-man show because they're the quarterback, but that's not the case. And here, again, all the way around. And Seattle, very, very late in this game, had a 13-10 lead. And Mike McDonald, as the defensive coach, is probably going to go, man, we had a couple shots to make a stop there, right? So
and Brock Purdy's an absolute madman for even attempting that pass at Jake Thomas.
Well, of course.
He's an absolute madman. Tariq Woolen is standing right there, and I think you can actually see Tariq Woolen not even believe that the ball is coming his way.
Yeah.
And he couldn't believe it so much. They ended up not even making a play on the ball.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead. Most impressive, most disappointing.
This game was a grind. I'm going to give it to, first of all, the 49ers starting tight end George Kittle, who got off to a great start in this game with a touchdown.
Right.
And got injured his hamstring, and we will see where that goes from here. But then you mentioned, I'll be honest, I'm in the boat. I had never heard of Jake Tunges before yesterday.
Nope.
I never heard of him. I had no idea who. I thought it was still Ross Dwelly on this team or somebody else playing. Kittle's, because how often do you know Kittle's backup tight end?
You rarely.
Exactly. And
Rarely.
they didn't even have, they didn't even have, I don't think they had Kyle Juszczyk. Did they have Kyle Juszczyk in this game?
He played.
Okay.
He played.
I mean, and then Tunjus comes in there. And he catches the game-winning touchdown. He has a 70 run-blocking grade, which is really good for a tight end. And all of a sudden, he's just a core component of this offense. And I'll be honest with you, I'd never heard of him before getting on the field in this game.
Well,
and
PFF doesn't know ball.
Look, Kyle Shanahan sure does. Man, oh man! I mean, he could just find anybody and score points with them, huh? I mean, and some other positives for the Niners. Christian McCaffrey looked really good, especially in the passing game. Ricky Pearsall with a 100-yard day, that helps with all their wide receiver injuries. So, look, the Niners, they got a lot of injuries. They're scratching and clawing. They found a way to win this one by the skin of their teeth, maybe. But like some other games we have here, they're 1-0, and that's okay.
Who did I have in mind? Oh, most impressive was Nick Bosa. I mean, just down the stretch, he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Fourth quarter specifically, 92.1 pass rush grade. Obviously, it has the play that seals it for him, getting the fumble by using Sam Darnold's right tackle to force the fumble. It's just pretty incredible. I mean, he is one of the best defensive players in the world. Most disappointing was Reek Woolen, in my opinion. 34.9 coverage grade in this past game. I told you he gave up the touchdown there in the corner of the end zone. He gave up 3 catches at 73 yards total. It just feels like he is just so boomer bust as a corner. You go back throughout his career, and it's just like some grades. There are some games he has an elite coverage grade, and other games it's a 34.5 or something like that, or like whatever it is. So this was a valley Tariq Woolen game, and that was obviously very tough for the Seattle Seahawks to overcome. Anything else before we get out of here?
Nope. The Seattle just needs to find somebody other than Jackson Smith and Jigba they can throw the ball to, because he had 124 and the rest of the team had 26.
Right.
And if you have only one weapon on offense, you're going to have an issue.
Yeah. Yep. I said get out of here, but I meant for that game because we still have 3 more that we're talking about. And the next one is Titans-Broncos. Broncos win this game 20-12. Sure. We'll take a look at the top 5 graded players that we have for the Denver Broncos. This is a strange game, man. And there are some players that played really well for Denver, and I want to highlight them. We start with Nick Bonito, their edge rusher. Fresh off his contract extension, a 91.5 elite game from him as a pass rusher. Cornerback Jaquan McMillan with an 87.2. Linebacker Justin Chernod with an 85.3. Cornerback Riley Moss, a 78.7. Offensive guard Ben Powers, a 76.9. Bo Nix in this game. 40.5, and the passing grade was worse than that. The Tennessee Titans in this one, safety Xavier Woods with an 87.2 to lead all Titans players. Cornerback Roger McCreary with a 84.0. Linebacker Cedric Gray, who had a great preseason, translating that into the regular season. You love to see that, a 77.0. Offensive guard Peter Skoronski is 73.8. And then defensive tackle Sebastian Joseph Day with a 70.4. Cam Ward, a 57.4 grade in this one. I really think that the only thing that matters for Cam Ward is essentially, do you know you have the right guy in clutch situations? To me, that's going to come down to how I'm going to judge Cam Ward this entire season is when he has a chance in, like, if it's a 1-score game in the fourth quarter down the stretch, is he clutch for you? And I don't really have a doubt that he's going to be. And in this game, I thought he absolutely was clutch, and his wide receivers really let him down. And so this was a Cam Ward, obviously not a win on the scoreboard, but like, I'm good with this. I'm good with this game.
It's a darn good defense on the road, and he was under a ton of heat all day.
And you don't often say that with a guy who has a 57.4 overall grade, and his passing grade wasn't great in this game, but I'm cool with this game. I don't really care about the rest. You were in Denver playing what could be the best defense in the NFL. I talked a little bit earlier about, who was it? Which offensive line was I talking about with 7? The Houston Texans. Their offensive line had 7 plays where they gave up a pressure in less than 2 seconds. The Titans had 9. They led the NFL this past week in 9. Dan Moore Jr. was unfortunately the victim of a couple of those at the left tackle spot with Nick Bonito rushing him, and then J.C. Latham was giving up a couple as well at offensive tackle too. They just straight up were not good enough. 4 of their 6 offensive linemen who played in this game, a significant amount of snaps in this game, had a pass blocking grade of 41.5 or less. That's bad.
Yep.
That's really bad. So Cam Ward this year is the ultimate wins are not a quarterback stat. Because the Titans are going to lose, in my opinion, a lot of ball games because they don't have the offensive line to be able to win. But Cam is going to have at least 2 or 3 games this year. Maybe that he will turn those into wins where he looks like he's the man. And so I thought, even with that stat that told the story, because the offensive line just straight up was not good enough for him, the drops hurt too. I thought that Cam was good down the stretch, and to me, that's all that mattered for Tennessee.
Tennessee's got to be better up front, because even for a guy like Cam Warden, he's fearless. That's the number one word for me with him. You just don't want him getting those bad habits of feeling like he's under pressure all the time. So they absolutely, Brian Callahan knows it. They need to be better up front, protect. But Denver's defensive line is full of monsters. So, that's a big story. My most impressive guy is Nick Bonito, fresh off a contract extension. Also, 6 pressures, a sack, 43% pass rush win rate. That'll do.
That will do.
That'll do. Nick Bonito, fresh. He must like making that money, man. Jeez, doing a good job of it. But 91.6 pass rush grade. All right, I'm going on my rant here. I'm flipping sides of the ball though. Denver, most disappointing Bo Nix. I'll get into that. The story of this game for me is turnovers on both sides. Yes, there was 6 combined, but 4 for Denver. 4 turnover-worthy plays from Bo Nix. Watching this game back, this offense back, kind of irritated me because I'll be honest. There are games where, okay, maybe you don't take a relatively bad team seriously enough, right? And you it's the trap game thing, right? Mm-hmm. This Denver team offensively didn't look ready to play at all. At all. There was missed assignments. There was receivers who didn't know what route they were running or what the timing was. I don't know what in the world Bo Nix's footwork was in this game. But that's not.
Well, he's trying to be Superman. Bo's trying to be very clearly. He's trying to be a version of himself that he's never been. Because over the last,
he's been that. He's been that at Auburn, and that's not the one that got him here.
No, and that's a good point. But the 2 versions of Bo Nix that was at Oregon, the senior year at Oregon, I thought was better at blending, the big time throw ratio with the turnover worthy play ratio. But last year, Bo Nix wanted to take care of the football. Right? He was starting things out, first year in Sean Payton's system, rookie year in the NFL. Very clearly, because this is not just him, very clearly both him and Sean Payton got into the lab this offseason, and they said, you're going to throw the football. And you're going to be somebody who throws for more than 4,000 yards, and we are going to win off of your arm because you can do it. And I think we saw him attempt passes in this past week that I haven't seen him attempt since Auburn.
Right. And off platform and the footwork all over the fundamental. The thing, at least with Bo at Oregon, and what he had figured out was the fundamentals and just doing the easy things right. And I thought the best thing he did last year was not beat himself. Mm-hmm. Right? That was the best thing this Broncos team did on offense was they didn't beat themselves. They're not talented enough across the board to go out and just walk out somewhere and dominate and win and score 45 points at will. So he's not Josh Allen. They don't have a loaded offense like the Bengals do or whatever. They're not this. I'll be honest. The way they played the offense in this game felt arrogant to me.
No, 100%.
Like it was just, yes. We're going to walk out here and we're better than this team. And I got guys missing assignments. The offensive line was still okay because that's the best part of his team. Mm-hmm. I got guys missing assignments. I got receivers who don't know their routes. I got Bo. Sometimes I don't know what he's looking at in this game. At least it felt like last year
he just wanted to be super aggressive. And honestly, I think Peyton told him throw the football.
And I know
today.
I don't care. I know you're going to get into this specific play at the very end of the game. We had Cortland Sutton about walking across the field. Just read it out and let Sutton win man coverage.
Yeah.
There's just certain plays. Some of these turnover. These are plays and throws and inaccuracies and footwork that I did not see from Bo Nix all of last year. It's great. You want to be Superman. You want to take the next step. Fine, but you can't throw the fundamentals out the window. And this game from Denver's entire offense, I would bet money that Sean Payton in whatever film session they're having today is just lighting into this team. They cannot play offense the way they played yesterday. Because against any other team, they would have lost yesterday, no question. I don't even know what happened to this offense, and maybe it's a 1 week thing where they just didn't take the Titans seriously. You play even if you go into Indy this week and you play like that,
I agree with you. They will lose.
That's a wrap. They will lose.
No, they will lose. But I think that Bo Nix and Sean Payton went in this offseason and he said, "Look, we're going to have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Okay, we're going to get turnovers. We're going to hold the team low to points. We can't be Super Bowl champions unless you open it up." And I think Bo's down with that. because he's got the arm to be able to do it, and he wanted to do it when he was at Auburn.
I don't know if he's down with it now.
No, I mean, I think that look, I think that he went overboard in this past game, but I don't think this mentality is going to change unless they really start losing games, because they won this game and they wanted him to be aggressive. I think he's going to be aggressive throughout the first half of the season, and they're going to see where they're at. Because if they're at the top of the division with him being aggressive, you better believe it's going to continue. And if they're not, obviously they might dial it back a little bit. But I don't think they're just shooting for the division this year. I think they know they could have the best defense in the NFL. And with that comes potential AFC Championship dreams. And the only way you get there, especially because they don't have Derrick Henry to hand the ball off to. They don't have Jonathan Taylor. They don't have Josh Jacobs. They don't have a running back like that. They know they have to throw to win. And this was the perfect game for them to try a bunch of stuff because they knew that they were going to be better than the Titans anyways. Now, they almost weren't, which is dangerous. But I think that this is what I thought we would see from – I am not shocked at all that this is what we saw from Denver.
No, this was shocking to me.
I am not shocked
This team doesn't turn the ball over. And if you're gonna,
they didn't turn it over last year.
And if you're gonna do this,
they're not trying to be the same team they were last year.
If they're trying to be this type of offense,
yes.
Why'd you take a corner instead of a receiver then?
Well,
Matthew Golden, a Luther Burden, whatever. Like what are we doing then?
I think they could have taken a receiver.
I don't. The best thing they did was not beat themselves. The best thing they can do with their defense is play complementary. Look, and there are moments. It's moments.
Yeah, but this is the same growing pains if you're going to go through. This is the same
problem. That problem, if that becomes a habit of we're going to go back to gunslinger Bo. Mm-hmm. This is the lesson that Anthony Richardson's learned a very hard way. That Will Levis has learned a very hard way. That Jordan Love has learned. That Trevor Lawrence is learning.
Sure.
You can't swing for the fences all the time in the NFL.
Yes.
And if Bo's going to do that, especially with, I don't know what this footwork he was showing yesterday, because there's nothing
I thought he was Brett Favre. Like yesterday right. Can't be, I'm not saying he needs to do, I'm not saying that he needs to play like he did yesterday, but the mentality of what they're going to try to go for this year is going to continue to exist for this team. I don't think that next week against the Colts, we're all of a sudden going to see junior year Bo Nix at Oregon again. I don't think that we're going to see that. I think they're going to throw the football this year.
Then I don't love it. They won.
You got to go through your growing pains.
They won so many games last year because they didn't make big mistakes. They didn't turn the ball over.
Yeah, but how many games did they win last year? What was it?
Then they won 10. They went 10-7.
They're trying to win more than that.
And they were way ahead of the curve, which is fine.
They're trying to win more than that.
They will get there, but if you're going in there,
you got to go through the growing pains.
This isn't growing pains to me. They played this. Their offense played bad.
If you're living in a one-floor house and you want to add a second floor to it, guess what you got to do, Dalton? You got to blow up the roof.
You force it, you end up like Jacksonville, and what they've been doing with Trevor Lawrence.
Not anymore with Liam Cohen.
Not anymore, but
Anyways, what I actually don't like the most about this game was the late fourth quarter decisions by the Broncos. I hated kind of this entire process. And normally I don't. I'm a big Sean Payton guy. I think he's a great head coach. I still think he is. I'm not trying to say that he's not. But okay, so let me run through these drives really quick. So it was, where are we here? The Broncos score a touchdown to go from up 13-12 to 12-19. Okay, at that point, there was 7 minutes and 37 seconds left in the game. Why wouldn't you go for two?
I say this all the time. Going up 9 should be a premium in any game.
Why wouldn't you go for two? And again, like Sean Payton is a coach who I would think would be on the cutting edge of a lot of this stuff. If you kick a field goal, you're up 8. So in theory, of course, you're forcing the Titans to not only score on you, but then convert a 2-point conversion. Is that difficult to do? Yes, it's difficult to do. You know what's more difficult to do? Score. Do that and then have another possession where you have to score again.
Score twice, yeah.
If you get it now, I want to be very fair when I say this. I think that we have a discussion. The way that we talk about 2-point conversions is very in a vacuum. And the reality is, the Broncos, I'm not saying that they are, I'm just using them as an example. They might suck at 2-point conversions. They might have run 2-point conversions all summer. Sucked at it. And if that's the case, yeah, if I'm Sean Payton, I'm saying, I'm not going to go out there and run a play. We suck at this. So that could absolutely be an example here. But if all things are equal and in a vacuum, go for 2 and make it a 9-point game.
Yep.
You force the Titans to have it to score on 2 possessions at that point. You got the best defense in the NFL. What are we doing? So I didn't like that. I did not like that they did that. Obviously, it ended up working out for them. Next possession, the Titans punt. Next possession, the Broncos have a turnover on downs. The next possession, the Titans punt. So then the Broncos take over. There's 4 minutes left in the game. Where are they here for this one? They are at their own 6-yard line. There's 4 minutes left in the game. They have a long 10-play drive. There is 1 minute left in the game. They're at the Titans 36. This is a what? 50-yard field goal?
53.
52-yard field goal?
Yeah, Will Lutz has got that in him.
You're up 8. It's been back-to-back punts for the Titans. Kick the field goal. A 52-yard field goal? Because then again, it's a 2-possession game.
And it was what, 4th and 1, 4th and 2?
It was 4th and what was it? It was 4th and 8. No. That one was a 4th and 8.
Okay.
You're talking about the one before where they ended up they ended up going for it. They didn't get it. Whatever. This was a 4th and 8. Why would you do that? And then obviously like the one. What was the one before? No, it was on that play. So instead of kicking a field goal, that was the one where they hiked the ball. Bo Nix looks to his right, chucks it to the moon, like as if they were wasting time for the clock to be.
Well, yeah. I mean, the worst part about that call is, I think actually Peyton, if he was going to do that, made a pretty darn good play call. And again, I don't know what Bo's going for. He had Cortland Sutton on a deep
that. I don't know what Bo was thinking on that one, but it was as if he was doing the thing that you do where you're like, hey, we got to kill 6 seconds and the game's over.
Yeah.
So you hike the ball, you look one way, you look the other, and then you just throw it super high. And he did that, and the ball fell in front of Mims. But it's almost like he wasn't even trying on that play. It was just a very, very, very strange last 7 minutes of that fourth quarter for the Broncos.
Yeah.
So they win this game, but it was very strange. Very strange.
There was just not a lot about the Broncos offensively that I like that occurred in this game. And they're lucky that they were playing a team like the Titans, who just couldn't capitalize.
I do agree.
To me, a poor offensive football game.
I agree.
They need to play a lot better than that if they're going to go to Indy and win next week.
Let's hit on the 2 games that we had before the weekend. The Cowboys and the Eagles, they played on Thursday night. The Eagles won this game 24-20. Cowboys gave them a run for their money, though. The Eagles' top 5 graded players in this game. You love to see the rookie linebacker Shahad Campbell at the very top of the list with an 88.3. Offensive tackle Jordan Mailata with an 86.4. Center Cam Jurgens with a 73.9. Cornerback Cooper DeJean with a 71.4. Defensive tackle Jordan Davis with a 71.2. Jalen Hurts in this game at 88.6. And then on Dallas' side of things, safety Malik Hooker was at the top of the list with a 76.3. Safety Donovan Wilson with a 74.4. Edge rusher Marshawn Neal in a 73.1. Defensive tackle Osa Odigizua with a 72.1. Cooper Beebe, their center, with a 70.4. And then Dak Prescott. Look at Dak.
Whew.
He's looking slim. He's looking healthy. He's back. Back Prescott's what we're calling him around these parts.
I knew you were getting there eventually. Yep.
90.0. An elite PFF grade in this one. Really quick, just have to tell the story. It's most impressive, most disappointing. We're hitting it real quick.
For various reasons, neither team could get a pass rush. They only combined for 1 sack in this game. The Cowboys, obviously, because they traded Micah Parsons.
Who?
Some guy that they needed better run defense.
Never heard of him.
Jalen Hurts, 3.67 average time to throw, was able to scramble 9 times. Part of that is 2 touchdowns and 3. They just couldn't bring Jalen Hurts down because, well, they're missing number 11, and their pass rush otherwise isn't great. And then on the other side, look, Dak was in a lot of clean pockets. He's my most impressive guy. Dak Prescott was fantastic. 86.1 passer, 4 big-time throws, 2 of them on the final drive, and CeeDee Lamb dropped them both. CeeDee Lamb with 4 drops on the night, a really rough night.
Yeah, brutal.
No, I mean, Prescott was great. Hurts was great in his own way, albeit conservative and doing it more with his legs. I mean, you just got, when you leave 2 good quarterbacks, this many clean pockets on both sides. And you know what, for the Eagles, I'll just throw it out there. Part of the reason they couldn't rush the passer is because we're spitting on people before the game even starts and getting ejected. So, I mean, their pass rush without Jalen Carter and without Josh Sweat, obviously.
Did you see Dak spit at him on the ground?
whatever, the second guy always gets caught.
Unfortunately.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, between Jalen Carter and your guy for the Florida Gators, it's just apparently a trend to just spit on people on a football field. So, that just goes. But really, the Eagles' defensive line was legitimately worse in this game than they should have been because Jalen Carter didn't play a single snap. Can't have that. We just learned how important he is to this team. They didn't look great. They didn't look great in the pass rush, and you had guys playing more than they should have been playing. So, no sacks or hits on Prescott, not one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you have Jalen Carter going against a rookie right guard and Tyler Booker, that probably looks a little different. So, for those in Philadelphia and in Gainesville, Florida, quit spitting on people. Very simple.
Almost made it 3.5 hours in the show without you bringing up
I saved the best for last.
Florida. Thanks, appreciate it. Congrats to USF, Tampa people. The stat told the story. Obviously, I think the defense is a little bit different when Jalen Carter's out there. He's one of the best defensive players that we have in the NFL. But I think the big takeaway here was, one, I think the Cowboys aren't going to be as big of a pushover as we thought they were going to be, even without Micah Parsons, right? If Dak's playing that way, they're going to be competitive every single week. So I think that is a stat that told the story and a major takeaway here. But I also just wonder, the Eagles' offense was not very explosive in this game. And I thought it was a defense where they could have looked explosive against them, and they were not. And you combine that with the defense that was not as good as it was last season, missing Josh Sweat and Milton Williams and obviously Jalen Carter. You're just missing a handful of players. When you look at Jalen Hurts in this game, 4.5 average depth of target, less than 5 yards of an average depth of target for Jalen Hurts, 3.67 time to throw. I mean, he's hanging on the ball forever. He was scrambling, and he was just looking for the things that were very low risk for him. 0 turnover where he plays. But the Eagles were 29th in total explosive plays last year. And then they were in explosive plays for the offense. And then they were 7th in completion percentage on those plays, though. So they didn't attempt a lot of explosive plays, but they completed a lot of them when they attempted them. I'm wondering if it's going to kind of be the same thing this year. But
underrated story.
Their defense had so many turnovers last year.
Yeah.
They were so elite at deep coverage. Nobody got explosive plays on the Eagles defense. And in fact, when you attempted them, not only did you not catch them, they caught them. They caught the interceptions. So if you don't have that, because turnovers are often fickle. There is a large part of luck and instability that is involved. If you don't get that, and the Eagles' offense is still, once again, just very low explosive, very conservative in what they want to do and how Jalen Hurts wants to operate, I think the Eagles are going to the gap between them and their opponents is going to be less this year. That's not to say that all of a sudden doesn't make them a powerhouse in the NFC. They're still one of the best teams in the NFC. But I think they seemed more beatable in week 1. If that's the identity of the team moving forward, even without Jalen Carter and factoring that back in.
Oh, they lost a few pieces on defense. I think an underrated storyline is Kellen Moore leaving to be the head coach of the Saints, and now Kevin Patullo being their new offensive coordinator, and what that adjustment would look like. And you're right, there are probably more games this year that Jalen Hurts will have to make more plays with his arm, right? He was great in the last 2 games in the NFC title game in the Super Bowl last year, but prior to those 2 games, I believe he was 30th in the NFL in passing grade, right? So, and he was great with his legs in this game, and the Cowboys couldn't bring him down. But it was inconsistent, and they're not. And maybe Saquon Barkley won't run. He's probably not going to run for 2,000 yards this year. So you're going to need some more answers. And even on the other side of the ball, Dak Prescott had a really nice night, and he was picking on certain guys in coverage, and obviously the rookie linebacker Campbell played well, and it was just there was. I'll say this much. There was a lot working against the Eagles in this game, and they found a way to win, call it with their C game. So I'll give them credit for that. But, yeah, there are things to work on. Even as a defending Super Bowl champion, I know they hate the title, but you always have things to work on. Even in a win, it's better, obviously, to scratch out a win, especially when you were a heavy favorite. But, it's going to have to be a little different. Saquon's not running for 2,000 again. No one's ever done it twice, right? And to include playoff 2,500. They got to find other ways to win ball games. Here, it was Hurts' legs. It was good enough defense. A little help from CeeDee Lamb. So be it. They got a division win. But there's certainly things to work on with this team.
The Chargers and the Chiefs, the Friday night game. Chargers win this one 27-21. Thrilling as we figured that it was going to be. The top 5 graded players that we had for the Los Angeles Chargers. Safety Derwin James at the top of the list with an 81.3. Cornerback Dante Jackson with a 77.7. Offensive tackle Joe Wall a 74.4. Wide receiver Quentin Johnson, a 73.7. And then wide receiver Ladd McConkey, a 71.3. Justin Herbert in this game, 84.0 overall PFF grade. On Kansas City side of things, defensive tackle Chris Jones, a 73.5. Cornerback Trent McDuffie, a 70.2. Safety Brian Cook with a 68.2. Linebacker Drew Tranquil, a 66.1. And then wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, a 65.7. Patrick Mahomes in this game, a 79.0. Dalton Seth told the story here.
Okay, so the first reason you think about the Chiefs of constantly being at the top of this division is Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, right? They have those two guys. It's like Brady and Belichick. They should win the division. The second reason is that they, over the last 3 years, have had one of the elite defenses in the NFL. They had the second highest graded defense behind Philadelphia last year, and they were just not good at all in this game at any level of this defense. 46 team defense grade in this game. That's their lowest since week 2 of 2021 in a game they lost to Baltimore 36-35, I believe. Just across the board, this was the worst defensive game we've seen the Chiefs play in a while. And I know in the Super Bowl it was bad too. That was pretty close as well. But just at all three levels, no pass rush. Defensive line, just aside from Chris Jones, and even Chris Jones wasn't at his top best in this game, nobody else gave him anything up front. I thought Nick Bolton especially struggled at linebacker, another guy who got an extension, but he struggled in this game big time. The secondary just looked a bit out of sorts, but I think the big thing and my most impressive guy, Justin Herbert, was just spectacular.
He was awesome.
He was just terrific in this game, and especially Justin with the big arm and the way they throw the ball vertically now in this offense. Greg Roman especially wants to throw the ball vertically with Herbert in that arm. In clean pockets in this game, 89.5 passing grade, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, big time throw. He was best player on the field. Mm-hmm. I don't even think it was close. I mean, you talk about this offensive line shuffling, missing Slater and all of that, and they were still able to pass protect. You would have never noticed Slater was gone in this game because the Chiefs D-line was getting nowhere, and then Herbert just took free shots at this secondary over and over. He was so in command. It's as good as I've ever seen him look, especially against this defense that you have to attack. Spagnuolo makes you attack, and he did it just perfectly. He played as good a game as anybody this weekend in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of not cohesive chemistry that we had from the Chiefs secondary, which is not a characteristic we have seen from them over the last couple of years.
Is that a losing Justin Reid factor there?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Justin Reid is one of the more underrated, versatile defensive backs in the NFL, specifically in Spagnuolo's system over the last couple of years. So when you're losing him, that's of course the case. You're replacing him with a young guy in Jaden Hicks, who I think is talented, but it's going to take time for him. They've got young guys in the secondary anyways. Even Trent McDuffie didn't have his best game in this one, and I think that ESPN analyst and, of course, Super Bowl champion with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Booger McFarland, mentioned this on Twitter, and I think that it was a good point from him. The Chiefs pass rush looked gassed.
Yeah.
I mean, they just looked like they weren't conditioned. And he had mentioned on Twitter, and I don't think he said this like word for word, but I think he alluded to it, like, things are different now. Like, you don't have super hard training camps. Like, you're not doing all these, like, crazy practices and everything, so that when you get to week 1, yeah, you're probably more fresh, but are you as conditioned as you need to be to, in the fourth quarter, tee off the way that you need to? And I was like, damn, I hadn't thought of it like that before.
And you flew to Brazil for this game,
and
too.
Obviously, like the travel and everything. Of course, right. So 55.7 pass rush grade is a team from the Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones, 64.9 pass rush grade. He only had 2 games where he had a lower single-game pass rush grade all year last year. So it was a very... this is a lower end of the spectrum of what you're going to get from Chris Jones, but I wonder if that conditioning sort of went into it. You mentioned how great Justin Herbert was, and he was fantastic. Joe Alt was as well. Man, Joe Alt had 4 reps against Chris Jones. Because you remember, I think it was you who brought this up. What was it? Last year? Maybe it was the year before. I can't remember. But it was the way that Spagnuolo will specifically use Chris Jones at defensive end at times.
Anywhere he wants, yep.
Anywhere he wants. And it was during the first half. I think it was during the second half was the first rep that we got of him as a right defensive end against the left tackle in Joe Alt. He had 4 reps where he went up against Joe Alt, 0 pressures, not even close. I mean, he didn't even get close to beating Joe Alt. And the last rep that they had 3 reps like that late in the second quarter, and then they had 1 rep where they tried to do that at the beginning of the third quarter. And then they went, nope, doesn't work, not doing this anymore.
Trey Pipkins, here you go.
Go to the other side, do something else. And so I think that's just it's such a tip of the cap to Joe Alt. 91.4 pass blocking grade. He didn't have the best run blocking day, but I don't think really anybody on the Chargers offensive line did. That's something that they've got to get better at. But man, to be able to handle a guy like Chris Jones, who brings you unique power, right? You highlighted that again last year when he's lined up as a defensive end. That's just power that you're not used to as an offensive tackle. You're really thinking about speed, a little bit more finesse. Sure, some guys use speed to power, but not the way that Chris Jones can often use that speed to power with his powerful hands as well. And Joe Alt was ready for it. And Mike Renner said this on Twitter, and I completely agree with him. The more you watch the Joe Alt tape from the Chiefs game, the more pissed you get that Rashawn Slater's out.
Yep.
Because this is the best. That's probably the best offensive tackle duo in the NFL if he's healthy.
Right. Philly, otherwise, that'd be the.
Philly's obviously up there.
But, I think the idea too with Joe Alt, and that's why they took him 5th overall.
Yep.
He's going to be an elite player if he's not already, and move it. And quite an adjustment too. He only made one start at left tackle last year in Week 18. Remember, he was left tackle all 3 years at Notre Dame, and just goes right back to it like getting on a bike.
Yep.
It's like nothing for him. He's incredible. And he's still only 22 years old this whole year. He's going to be an elite. If not in the next few weeks, we start calling him an elite player. He may be right now if you want. He's going to be one of those tackles we talk about for the next 10, 15 years.
He is indeed. That's why Harbaugh ran the card in to go get him when he did. Could have gone wide receiver. Could have gone different directions. But Joel was on.
He got a number 1 wide receiver anyway. Sure did.
Quinn Johnson. They just got to play every game in Brazil.
Right. Maybe that's true.
And it'll be great.
Yeah. Well,
there we go, folks. Consider every single grade released. Consider every game reviewed. We got one more, obviously, Monday Night Football, but appreciate everybody rocking with us, hanging out. A lot of people in the chat. Watching the show live. Ooh, we love that. Always week 1. There's a lot of excitement. We appreciate you guys joining us for that. It's a lot of fun for us to get up here and talk about these games at a deeper level. If you guys want to have a deeper level of how you can view the games or preview your team's upcoming opponent, master your fantasy football moves throughout the season, I mentioned earlier in the show, maybe getting an edge when it comes to those bets that you're going to be placing every single week, download the PFF app, get yourself a PFF Plus subscription. That's the best way to do that. PFF NFL Show 25 gets you a 25% discount if you go do that at subscribe.pff.com. So it's not just something for this season. It is year-round when we get into draft season as well. Ton of value there when it comes to how your team is going to team build. We're going to have a lot of team-specific stuff this year for those PFF Plus subscribers, so why not get 25% off right now? PFF NFL Show 25, no spaces. That's the promo code for you to get 25% off. If you enjoy the show, you're a company out there, you'd love to get to work with PFF, sales@pff.com. We would love to have you aboard to sponsor any of the content that we have over at PFF. So once again, sales@pff.com is the best way that you could do that. Enjoy Monday Night Football, everybody. For Dalton Wasserman, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching the Week 1 grade release show. We will see you in 2 days for the preview show for Week 2 on Wednesday. See you guys then.